All right, we are live. I'm really excited. It's about 10 o'clock, 10:30ish, and I'm finally ready and all set up to start working on my comic. So this is the live stream. If you're tuning in for the first time, I'll do plugs and links and stuff to books that I've done throughout the stream. I've even queued up videos this time, some of the trailers for my current graphic novels, one that's coming out in June, and one that already exists that you can get today for whenever I take my breaks. So as long as I remember and chat, you guys can remind me as I'm streaming. If I do one of my moments where I like get up to get a refill of coffee or something like that, I can just queue up the trailer, which was a great suggestion from Scott Cirkland, my buddy. And I think Corey also recommended I do that to fill kind of the dead air in those spaces. And I'm like, that's brilliant. I didn't even think to do that. So now I have everything queued up. I finally did my due diligence and have that all set. So hopefully that'll be interesting and cool for you guys. Other than that, we're just going to kind of dive into it. But just as a quick intro for people who might be tuning in for the first time, I'm Joshua Kemble. I make graphic novels, and I'm going to be working on a graphic novel tonight that I'm knocking out a bunch of pages for called Not Death But Love, the strange supernatural story of Elizabeth Barrett Browning, which is created by my sister, Lavender Vroman, and then myself. And the script is completed. And so now it's about taking the script and iterating it in visual form. And, uh, and as you'll see, I'm kind of finding that doing, excuse me, that doing a historical graphic novel is a lot to bite off. So you'll see in these streams a lot of the time I'll be doing research, I'll be working on art, and I'll probably be doing these mostly almost every night, a lot of the time as for the next like year as I'm getting these completed. So so far we're on page 5. Oh, and I wanted to say hi to everybody in the chats. So we got Gary Hodges. How's it going? Gary of Dinosaurs versus Marsbots fame, who also has a live stream of his own on Saturdays that I'll be probably showing up to most Saturdays, assuming that I have the crazy work schedule that I do now. It's always fun to have an excuse to hang out with other cartoonists. We got Anna Raub of Tarocco Creative Cast, co-host with our moderator Frank. How's it going, Anna? And we got Keith joining. How's it going, Keith? Keith Harper, really incredible illustrator on his own. So good group, good house of people. All right, let's get to it. So basically, last time I was working on, let's pull up what I got here. So, for those of you new to the format or returning who need a little reminder, that's where I'm going to be working on art. And right down there is the section of the script. So, right now, I'm just leaving the title up because we already know this section. We already comped it out. We already kind of worked it out. And now we're just doing flats. And by flats, I mean like, if you look under the color, it's like breaking down things into shapes. We already got a decent start on that yesterday. Everything you see here that's like that dark teal, grayish color is basically unfinished. So I need to flat the rest of this page. I'd like to kind of make it work so that once I add rain to it, it's going to look nice and misty. And I can't even say the word misty since I have a kid who was obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine when he was a little kid. Every time I say the word misty, there's a Thomas the Tank Engine song called Misty Island Rescue that just pops into my head like just I instantly want to sing it. Um, but it's a pretty cool country song for those of you who might have like 5 or 6 year olds, because my kid, especially at the age of 5 and 6, that's when he was like actually 4 to like 6, he was like obsessed with Thomas the Tank Engine. Actually, honestly, more like 3 to 6. He's less so now, although he still digs Thomas. But anyhow, that was a tangent, and that's what you're going to expect a lot of on this stream. A lot of crazy tangents, and let's get into working before I get off on a long talk about Thomas the Tank Engine. All right. Oh, and Anna said, not working tonight, so I'm excited to catch this live stream. Well, we're excited to have you. It's awesome to have you watching. And we're gonna get into it. So here we go. Basically where we left off last week on Joshua Kimble's live stream, we were working on flatting. And then just kind of cue the dung dung from Law and Order. Um, now we're all caught up on what the plot is. So this is page 5, and I'm just gonna try to kind of work on the flats. And what I tend to do with flats is work kind of reductively, which isn't a method everyone I know uses, but I find that to me it seems like it saves time. I say like it seems like it saves time because that could be an illusion. um because it does seem to take time too. So if you guys know quicker methods, especially for flatting color underneath rendered lines that aren't like solid blacks and whites, let me know. But for me, what I like to do is kind of get in there, find the areas of color that I want to kind of block out, and then take away those colors from it. Keith said, "Did you start an hour earlier? Curious because the reminder said 11:30 p.m." That's weird. I don't even know why the reminder would say that. That's interesting because it might be that maybe YouTube is still on like pre-time change or something. Yeah, I definitely did not tell it to remind you that. So that's interesting. I'll have to look into that, Keith. But I'm glad you kind of caught it earlier. Um so right now I think I'm gonna get some wins here. There's one thing I wanted to see too. I don't know if I have this here. Yeah, I don't, but I have it in my roughs. I want to actually see what the color of the costume was, because I actually found like a costume that I kind of liked for his for Robert Browning's outfit, and I kind of wanted to check and see if I still have that here so that I don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel when at least they'll give me a rough idea of the color palette that I want to go to. Okay, I got my shoe. Let's see. We're just going to go through this and see our references here, because we had like a lot of nice references. It'd be a shame if something happened to your references. That's from I don't know if you guys have noticed, but like Jim Lujan recently has been on a kick of doing like it'd be a shame if something happened kind of bits, and so I thought I'd throw that in there for him. I do highly recommend, if you guys like humor, to oh, hang on a second. We're gonna deselect real quick. Anytime I have to deselect color, you're gonna see this craziness. Didn't want to do that. I wanted to do this. Oh, you know what? We just deleted something important. Okay. No, we didn't. What is this? There's like a stray layer. Okay, sorry. So I'll do this kind of craziness. Not copy. I will sort of like take the area that I'm still working on reducing, and I'll make it a color that is likely to be a color that I will never use, which quite often will be like 100% magenta. Anyhow, so for anybody who's into humor, and especially that like kind of it'd be a shame if something happened type of bits, I recommended this to Jim a couple streams back, but there's a Monty Python sketch that I cannot recommend enough that does that, but it's like this mobster going to like a military base, and he's like, "It'd be a shame if something would happen to your tanks." Like he's trying to shake down the military for protection. It's kind of funny. Anyhow, it's one of those classic Python bits. I don't even think there's much of a punchline other than just the guy in the military like sweating profusely while he's getting threatened by a mobster. It's like you got a lot of tanks, pretty nice tanks. It'd be a shame if something happened to them, that kind of thing. Um, let's see. We got even factoring in shifting time zones, it was off by an hour. Yeah, it's nice to have references. That's true, Keith. Especially when so I wanted his pants to kind of have this thing. I like the gray actually of the pants. So there we go. We know our pant color. And see that's part of why I wanted to get some of this reference out of the way. Was like, now we got our pants figured out. See how quick that was to get a pant color? And again, all of this might shift, but at least it's a starting point. So we're going to deselect our pants here. Doing the pants dance. All right, there we go. Pants deselected. And the way I deselect is like I'm using a selection tool, and then I'm holding let me see. Oh yeah, I'm holding Option on a Mac. So if I do that, like Option takes away. If I do plus, it adds. Shift, that's the shortcut to add to my selection. All right, so let's get into what else? What are the other colors here? All right. So it's basically pretty basic. It's black. There's kind of like a cream to like pattern on the vest, which I don't think we're gonna see the vest yet. And it's almost like a navy in comparison to the hat, which is gonna be like a solid black. So I just need to remember that, having the terrible memory that I do, try to kind of remember that. So let's get that taken care of. I'm going to do black, but I don't want it to be black because, again, black is never a great indication of black under black for color. I think I just said black like 50 times. But it's never like the best method. I'm going to check that out and see what that looks like. I don't particularly like how that looks, so I'm going to start with my purple with the line off, and I'm going to try to find like a good approximation of black, which actually might be that. It might just be a little bit of purple with like a little less saturation, maybe a little darker. That might be too dark, might be a little too close. Let's try. But I like the idea of it kind of being almost within the realm of the purple. But I also don't want this to be like a wildly purple page. All right, let's see how that works. Ooh, well, I think if I notch it up just a little bit so it's not quite so dark, and then we kind of input the saturation just a little more. I'm using hue saturation, by the way, and the color sliders to kind of pick my color. Is that too close to the sky now? Let's see. Hey, that seems like enough of a differentiation from the sky. And now we have a good working black for now. So that's going to be my jacket here. Yep. I think we're getting there, guys. All right. So I'm going to get this jacket done here. And we're deselecting that. I like to, again, work reductively rather than additively. A lot of people work the other way, where they'll kind of do a piece at a time and add. I tend to like doing this because it helps me just kind of fill all the color areas. And it also forces me to limit my color palette, which I'm a big fan of. Like I think one of the biggest mistakes people will make early on when getting into comics is like just having way too many colors. And too many colors can look more amateurish than it is, weirdly enough, just because it's like it's tempting to use every color in the rainbow. And I get it. I don't even judge it. I kind of see the temptation to do so. All right, so we want to do this as like this is going to be like a different tone to have under the black. Kind of more similar to the one we started with. Yep. Is that too close though now? I think that needs to be brightened too. And maybe saturation just a little bit further in there. Oh, the sash on the hat. That's another thing I need to see here. So let's see if we can find that reference. The sash, I think, is the same color. But would it be fun if the sash has a different vibe too? Okay. That's how we're going to do it. All right, so I'm going to get in here. I'm going to make sure my hair is still selected, but my hat is deselected. I also am going to need to reselect that eye. I just noticed I missed his eye. Is that the only section that has the hat? There's some other areas where I could deselect this color too. Although I'm kind of thinking on those city pages, it might be better to start with like the larger shapes and kind of work my way down. But I do like that color for the lamppost, so I'm going to deselect my lamppost here. Because again, like the more you kind of take out of it, it's like a video game where you're knocking out different areas of color. Till eventually you have nothing selected and you're done. Now, this would be like the basis of what you do before you kind of start rendering. So you have like nice flat shapes and stuff set there. Terry Gilliam's weird animations warped my brain as a child, said Keith. Mine too. And his movies kind of continue to do so, right? Like he was always like just a phenomenally interesting dude. Very unique. The way he'd make those animations back in the day was pretty cool too. A lot of it's like cut paper and stuff, and then like stop motion, which is just kind of unbelievable on the budget that they did that with. Nowadays, you can kind of do that style of stuff like relatively fast in comparison. Because we have Photoshop and stuff like that. But imagine, back in the day where he had to have this like crazy clip art file and just do all this crazy stuff. Anna said, digging the limited palette. Yeah, limited palettes are just a good method to color with. What was I going to try to find? Oh, yeah. So I want to find my pitch page because I believe I have the color for Robert's eyes and hair already worked out on there. Haha. There we go. So we have the eyes and the hair. Are they the same color? Okay, there's my hair and there is my eyes. Me eyes. Why isn't it eye dropping the eyes? Oh, there we go. Cool. So I'm going to just do that eyeball real quick. Shift F5. There's my eyeball there. Oh, wait a second. I just did the eyeball color fill without the eyeball. This will be a little trick too. So I don't want it to have like that weird banding line between the selection. So what I did was select beyond it, and then I can deselect the white. And that kind of should give me that eyeball. There we go. Eyeball color, check. Hair color, check. It's very subtle against that night sky, so we might have to do something about that. But I do think he's supposed to be sort of hiding in the shadows. And in this page, you're supposed to kind of, the hope is to kind of make it seem ominous, like you don't know that he's actually there with good intentions. It could be like a creepy person just kind of standing out there. So subtlety of that doesn't necessarily bug me. I don't like the straggler here. No stragglers when you're. There we go. Okay. I'm going to save because I think we've finished the. We have finished the page. Like in the sense of him. So now I need to do my street scene. So are we done with that reference of the. Yes. Goodbye reference. You are gone forever. Okay. So I think we're done with that. I'm going to save, and then I'm going to do, I want to do a color for the street that blends and kind of juxtaposes against this. So maybe it'll be, we're in kind of the greenish gray area, a little bit close to the pants. But like I want it to be the direct tone. But I also want it to have enough of a saturation difference to where it's not going to blend in too much with the pants here. Not a saturated value difference. That might be too light. Let's find out. Nope. That's perfect. Great. So now we have our sidewalk. Let's get rid of our sidewalk, guys. And this is just the start to a literal color palette. And a lot of this is going to be blocked by rain, but I still care about the little details. So even if it's just a tiny difference, it's going to make. And again, because this is so rendered on the top, I don't want to render too much of underneath the line because that'll be like overkill. I had to do that on the first illustrated page of this in order to brighten the sky and do like a color hold on the line. But even then, I was trying to be really cautious to like it. I'm trying to set some limitations to the style of this, in particular, so that it feels more like an Arnold Lobel kind of style of illustration where it's like a tinted photograph. And the more I kind of render the color, the more it's going to take away from all the rendering that's going on top of the flat color. So the more I can kind of leave it as flat color, the better. I've already established, I think, a ground rule that if I need rendering, I should probably do what I did on the first page with a little bit of white, almost like airbrushed over it as like parts of the light. And then from there, we'll kind of see if like there's any more needed. If there's one step further, then maybe it's like a mild color hold, particularly on skies and in vivid backgrounds. But I really want to avoid the cell shading technique that I use for like used all throughout Jacob's apartment and in my illustration career on full color illustrations. Although I can show you guys really quickly um, some really cool things about that. Maybe after I'm done with this selection, I'll try to show you guys. If anyone has interest, let me know in the chats if you'd be interested in kind of seeing. Wow, now I'm wondering if that's a good idea to do, because that might be sort of establishing a time thing that I don't have time to do. But if you're curious in the chats and you want to see, like, I can show you at least really quickly how you could do like a highlight and a shadow. If you wanted, like, let's say that you were doing this with like open lines above it, like where it was just black and white. This flatting technique is sort of the start of the process to kind of getting this like very rendered look. And you can do that classic kind of like Disney-ish cell shading look very easily using this technique. This is just the start of that process. So if you guys have an interest in that, let me know in the chats. And if not, I will continue to plug through and kind of make these pages. Gary said, I pre-ordered my copy of Jacob's Apartment on Barnes & Noble today. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate that. Okay, Anna said she was curious. So, okay, maybe I'll show you in a few. Hang on. You know what we'll do? We'll do a placeholder real quick. Again, like if I'm stopping, I want to make sure that I have the area that I have not blocked out in color is going to be like this really obvious color that I won't be using. Although that does look pretty rad under that kind of ink. Maybe I'll do that for a sequence. Maybe I will do just like pure magenta. It's going to look like a crazy indie comic. Okay, let's use this. Let's use this as a example. So basically what you do once you have all your flats, and you can do this with like a mass selection, or you can just, do it singularly. But the cool thing is once you have it done and you've got it all flatted, you can go in and deselect. Hang on. We're going to use this as like the lighter color. You can kind of deselect the area, like you're almost like pretending that it's the light source. And so you can sort of deselect it. And then deselect, like, I don't know, if my light source is coming from up there, maybe it'll be like that. This is going to be a really quick and dirty example of that, right? So now you have your selection like this, right? Then I can do my Command H to hide it, hide my selection, Command U to go to hue saturation. I turn the lightness down just a little bit and the saturation up. And now you've got like, oh snap. I mean, it looks a lot more impressive with under those lines. If you really want to, after that, you can get into like either using dodge and burn in those flat selected areas, or you can go old school with like more of a brush and just kind of soften some of the edges. Let's see here. So that it'll kind of look almost like this mystical experience. But it's really just a very quick and dirty process. Like once you're done with your that doesn't really show too well with it. Unfortunately, it doesn't show well with the with the rendering over it. But if you had like, if you can imagine, if you had like open line, and right now I don't have any of my brushes for my regular, here I'll use a pencil. So if you had like an open line style over this, you can kind of see what I'm talking about, I guess. So I'm just going to do a very quick and dirty open line over it so you can kind of see what I'm saying. Voila. Let's see. What else? Is there anything else that's useful in there? Oh yeah. You can also just iterate to the nth degree on this, where you do like, okay, now I'm gonna do all my light source areas are gonna be sort of in there. Like maybe I want to do it like one level up on rendering. Um, and then you do like Command U, lightness, saturation, right? Does that make sense? I mean, that's how like a lot of people do cell shading. That's how they color the Simpsons comics and all that fun stuff. So anyhow, that's pretty much like a good old trick, but the hue saturation is really good for that. But nice to know. Nice little trick to know. All right, let's get into. I'm almost wondering if I can pull up. Oh my gosh, I almost want to show. Okay. I'm gonna pull open so you can kind of see what that would look like in reality rather than on this page, because it's better to show on a page that's not this kind of thing. Sorry, this is a divergence from what I need to work on, but it's still fun, and it'll work because it promotes um, Jacob's apartment. Okay, so if I break this cover down, right, it's like, so we're gonna have, I have my B. If you look under the B on the cover, you see what I'm talking about? It's like, so B lines underneath the B. Then we've got like, I've got my custom type that's here. Under the custom type, just a couple layers here. Another custom type thing. Um, there's my stars, right? So you can kind of see the stars are just one solid color. There's a gradient underneath. That's a flat gradient. This is my line art. So if I turn off my line art, you can kind of see some of the sloppy selections underneath. And that's kind of what flats look like under. Does that make sense? Um, so there we go. There you go, right? This probably isn't the full extent, because I think there's some rendered. This may not have been the final, because this was before I added rendering. I think I went one step further. Maybe that's later on. So I went one step further for the cover and had rendering on it. But at least that gives you a rough idea of it. So that's how it starts. Okay, back to work. Hope was that helpful, Anna? I hope that was helpful. Yeah, Keith said those flats look like an Illustrator style drawing. Yeah, like all flats generally look. Most flat art, when it's just flat, will look a lot like that Illustrator style, because it's generally going to be just flat color. Let's see here. And then I think on the final cover, I went like a step further. That definitely wasn't the final. I'd have to dig and kind of find my absolute final one. Oh, here it is. Okay, just for you, Anna, I'm gonna have one more divergence from the job at hand, just to show. Okay, so this one has the kind of cool like rendering on it, right? So if I zoom in, it's like, just to show you again like how that would look. It's like I had like a purple unifying color kind of overlaid over all of the color, because that's just a good trick to unify the colors. And then we have some color adjustments that I added in the last minute to kind of punch up the color. So you're going to see all that shading. There's all of this lovely stuff. And then if I go under here, you'll be able to see. So all of this was built on this. It's just like what you would do to do the other thing is, like in this case, I took like a dither brush, right? And I selected the area, and then I would paint in that area. Like, does that make sense? So you almost use those areas as like a thing to almost like airbrush over, but you've made your mask shapes. So that's kind of like the final iteration of color. I hope that kind of makes sense. So that's what you're seeing. Um, and then there's a little bit of the Image Comics nerdery there, where I don't know if you've noticed that on Image, but they always add like a tiny little bit of white to shine on the areas, and they'll go like a couple areas of selection deep so that it kind of looks extra cool. So that's what you're seeing on that final cover. Just so you know. There you go. That's a little look behind the curtain. So now you know my tricks. There's nothing left to discover. All right. Kind of joking, but I hope that was kind of interesting. And let's get into Frank said, wait, Anna doesn't know this. And Anna said, just for me. And then Keith said, Josh will bill you later. And anyhow, so that was kind of the fun there. All right, so we're gonna try to find this section. So the rest of this street I'm not too super particular on, but I do think it's important to kind of get as close to the original color. Now the front of the building changed a lot on 50 Wimple, but which is such a funny sounding street name. But I still think it's important to kind of have. I think I'm going to try to have like a similar trim of window, and a similar generic building. So that might be a good place to start. And in this case, it might be better. I'm trying to think what's going to be quicker. I also want to maybe exaggerate a little bit of the yellow here and pull back just a tiny bit of the. So I'm going to do my little fives trick. I'm going to make it 15, 20, and 30. And then we're going to do. Okay. And there's a little bit of brick going on in there too. So I'll try to keep that in mind as this continues. Hmm. Okay. Hmm. All right. So I think that's a good baseline. So I'm also going to go back up here where I made my little cheat palette. And I'm going to do this for my baseline color, just somewhat close to his skin tone. And now I'm going to go back to this, and we're just going to work through this crazy building one step at a time. And I think in this case, it might be better to just do each piece as we go. So we're going to start with Wimple because that's the main focus, and then I'll kind of build the rest of the street from there. And this may not be the most glamorous thing to watch because it's just flatting a page, which is probably one of the least interesting of all the processes to watch. But hopefully I'll make it interesting for you guys. I kind of want to see what that window trim looks like. What does the window trim look like? It is white. Okay. Get back in there. Get back in there. Okay, that window trim is, yes, that's good. Okay. And then I think the door is like green. But if it's not green, I'm going to make it green. like a bluish color. So maybe we'll do that like deep royal blue. And then as to like the color of this checkerboard thing, we don't know. That's the catch. We have to kind of invent. All right. So we're getting in there and doing all this fun stuff here. And I think I'm going to get into deselecting this area too. Actually, let's just deselect the whole here. Yep. And that'll be the edge of the other building. And I want to kind of reselect. Let's reselect a little bit further out. And cool. We have our marching ants just marching away, you guys. What's the difference from flatting and coloring? Well, so flatting is the start of coloring. Flatting is just where you're making your flat selections. Coloring is when you start adding depth and shading, and you start more particularly selecting your areas. So that's kind of how I see the difference. You know, like in large studios that do full color work, like you know, which are less and less common these days. But back in the day, you know, if you sent your art to like a colorist, the first step was flatting, and then it would be cell shading. So there would be a flatter who did the flat shades, and then the cell shading, which would be like the layer of shade over it. But the flat selections, the act of just kind of selecting and separating everything into flats, that's sort of the difference. Does that make sense? So really it's not like super different, but it is different. Like if you were a flat colorist, there's a difference in pay too, right? Like because to flat in general, you know, effectively, like one of the reasons I love Chris Ware, if you look at Chris Ware's color selections, the man picks like, I mean, he can pick like 3 colors in a palette that say more and look better than, you know, a million colors on a page. Um, and so like for him, like flats, maybe, you know, somebody would pay like a bunch for. Another amazing colorist that's a little underrated is Daniel Klaus. He picks just like beautiful, like flat colors, where it's like 1 or 2 tones. Tomine too, Adrian Tomine does some really nice, like subtle colors. But in general, well, you know, most people like, you know, to flat a page or whatever, you can get that like outsourced and pay like probably like $15 for it. Um, now what you get back is not going to have the greatest color selections, but if it does all the separation for you, that's great, you know, and saves you hours of work. Why I don't do that, I don't know. I think on personal projects, I prefer to kind of handle everything myself if I can. Um, Especially on a job on a project like this, I don't think it would outsource well. I think it would be almost, I'd probably spend more time cleaning up the bad selections than I would just doing it myself. That's what I've told myself. So we'll see. So right now we're kind of doing, I want to have that be really prominent, but I need to actually do another. Okay. Okay, I think that's enough of a value shift. Value shifting. And the thing I love about having done all the rendering on the line art, it's just a different process. Like it's gonna be a much more kind of toned back experience. I do like this kind of green that's going on in the windows. And again, whenever if I color select a color from somewhere, I usually try to pull out the black from it, especially if it's going to be sitting under black lines. It's a good little hint as well. Look at that. We're getting there, guys. Very slowly. Very, very slowly. We are getting there. And my hope is to flat this page by 2 in the morning. Usually better to just start with good selections. I agree. Yeah. I'd rather start it off right. Okay. I'm running low on coffee and I can tell. So I will probably be getting up to get coffee in about 10 minutes, and then I will play for you guys the trailer. This is the new thing that I'm going to be doing when I get up to refill my coffee. I will play a trailer for my upcoming book, which you can already watch on my YouTube channel, but at least it'll be a nice time filler whilst the things happen. Um, and I was like, "Woohoo! You're getting there!" Yeah, like this is the process of comics, guys. It is a slow, painful thing that I don't know why any of us do, but we do it, and we're proud of it when we do it, right? My wife just leaned in and was cracking up because she's like, why do you do this?" No, I'm kidding. She's a kids book illustrator, so she gets it. It's like there's something about this art thing um, that we love that makes us spend inordinate amounts of time. The funny thing too is like there's this perception out there. Then again, to be honest, this perception's not all that off. Like if this was open line art, the process to color this would be like so quick, so much quicker. So I guess like but there is this perception sometimes that like it's kind of like I just click here and color's done. um it's like those people who kind of will assume like you just kind of hit the button that draws stuff for you. um and I think a lot of people don't realize like how much of the traditional still kind of resides in the practical process. But we are getting there. And the nice thing is right now I'm kind of trying to get examples from the real thing in order to work out the this one panel. So once I have that, then I can work from this first panel to kind of get the other panels. So right now I'm gonna, but I will say if this were open line, you could literally just use your magic wand, get into the white area. As long as your lines are aliased, it's gonna go right to the edge. You do just select, expand. It expands by like a pixel underneath your line, and then you just fill. Shift F5, boom, done. Um, so even in the case of like these windows, if this was just open line, it'd be a very quick process to make these selections, which again would make it a lot easier to kind of outsource. But in the case of this, it requires a lot more creative thinking in the flats here. Another option is to do what they do on Marvel comics back in the day sometimes, where you just have like, like one flat color for a building. But in this case, I think the little details, particularly because this is an establishing shot, are going to really make this sing. Um, but we shall have to see. Philip said, "Click the color button and it's all done." I like to think that it's rewarding in the end. It's hella rewarding. The funny thing is, I was at work today and drawing astronauts. Um, and that was my hard day at work. Was like I have to draw spaceships and astronauts. That was like, and it was really stressful because it was on like a crazy time crunch, and we had to make all these different spaceship designs and stuff. Um, that's a cool problem to have, you know. So, but while I'm doing that, I had like in the back of my head like creating the world of the Brownings, like of Elizabeth and Robert Barrett Browning, like the visuals of that. And like I was thinking, what does like her father look like? And like these are the things I'm thinking when I'm off the clock, not drawing astronauts. And I was like, yeah, being an artist, like it's not always the most like high paying thing in the world. It's not always the most easy thing in the world. It's definitely a lot of work, but holy crap, like what a fun job, you know, like what a cool job to have. What a cool side job to have. Like, I don't know. I feel like there's nothing I'd rather be doing. I mean, it's work, but it's like, man, you know, like would you rather be working on that or like, you know, I don't know, like pouring concrete out in the hot sun or something? Like I to me it's like the life of an artist or a designer is like a million times more fun, you know. Although then again, to be honest, there's days where I like would rather there are days where it is just a job, you know, at the end of the day. But I'm just saying it's like a fun. I'm just very fortunate and blessed to be able to do that, you know. Um, and I'd be an asshole to complain about it, is what I'm getting at. But it can feel thankless sometimes, you know, where you're like, okay, we're an hour in and I'm still flatting panel one, you know. um, but it's a good thankless, you know. I don't know if that makes sense. Do I sound like a jerk, guys? I hope I don't. Maybe I do. Maybe I want to sound horrible and evil. That's my goal here, guys. But I did have that thought today of like being very thankful for where my life has led to where this is like my hard work after work and then again like pretty fun day job. So now we've got a couple of these windows done and we are getting ever closer to my little break. Now you're going to notice this too when I do these streams, and this might be useful to you guys. You might already implement this too. If you do, cool. Um, one thing I like to do is gamify my workflow. So like in this case, it's like I really want to refill my coffee, and I'm like I have to make the hour mark in order to get up and refill my coffee. Like that's my rule. And sometimes you'll see like I'll kind of gamify. Like if I really need coffee, I'm not gonna, um, you know, torture myself or something. But if it can get me to kind of like fool myself to work a little longer, um, then why the heck wouldn't I do it? I want the. I think this was red, this thing, but I want it to be blue. So in this case, for design's sake, I think I'm gonna have that be blue. Have that be the blue thing right there. Um, Oh, and that's another thing with color is a good rule of thumb with color is like a rule of threes, where there's the rule of threes compositionally that a lot of people are familiar with, but there's also the cheat rule of threes, which is I just call it a cheat because it's like if you don't want to get like heavy into color theory, a good just general rule of thumb with color is have if you have a color in a composition, have it appear in at least three different areas of the composition. Um, there's something about three that unifies compositions. And so, like, if you don't want to get heavy into like the color theory of it and like how it works and all that stuff, and like analogous palettes and all that great stuff, um, just a good rule of thumb, if you introduce a new color into a design, try to introduce it in three different areas. And you want them somewhat balanced throughout. So you're kind of trying to figure out how to balance, like, do I need more of this color in this area? Does that balance out this other area? That also goes with type. In general, with typography, if you find that you're doing designs that just look like all over the place, ask yourself, have I introduced more than three typefaces? In general, you want to kind of try for two, but if it's beyond three, um, you may be making a really bad design. That's a good little rule of thumb. Let's see here. Oh my gosh, you guys, 4 minutes until the trailer. Which I want you guys to let me know in the chats which trailer would you want to see? Do you want to see two stories? The trailer for my book that is currently out. And the trailer was from back in December of last year when it was released. But that's one option, or the other will be the trailer for Jacob's Apartment, which is coming out in June. Although at the time I made the trailer, it says May. Which do you guys prefer, Jacob's or two stories? Frank said, I have received no thank yous for coloring pages of the latest comics. So, yes, it can be thankless, but I still enjoy the outcome. Thank you, Frank, for coloring the pages of your comic. Thank you very much. There you go. It's not thankless anymore, Frank. You can't make that claim anymore. Okay, Frank says Jacobs. Frank, not only was he the first to speak, but Frank is also the moderator of the chats. And so, being the mod of the channel, he instantly gets preferential treatment. So, of course, we're going to go with the Jacobs trailer. So, you guys, just to build the anticipation, in about 2 minutes, you will see the trailer, the actual trailer of Jacob's Apartment, my graphic novel that's coming out in June. That I believe Gary in the chats earlier said that he had pre-ordered from Barnes and Noble. I'd recommend pre-order it, and also if you have the time, go to your local Barnes and Noble and say like, "Hey, can you guys carry this lovely book, Jacob's Apartment?" Any bookstore you go to should be able to order it very easily. Because it's actually distributed through Diamond, and I'm very excited about that because that means this book will be in bookstores, and it could be in bookstores in your hometown. And a lot of that's just it's amazing. I can't undersell the importance of how much power there is in the hands of the consumer when it comes to what stores will order. And so I would just highly encourage you guys, the next time you're at a bookstore, just say, hey, order Jacob's Apartment. And I will play you guys a trailer in about a minute that will hopefully get you pumped about it and excited about it and probably slightly depressed because it's not a very happy book. Unfortunately, I tend to work on these very like moody, emotional books. I don't know what that is either. Maybe we can kind of get into that after I do my break. I have to finish this window though. So I was gonna say like in a minute, but I'm guessing we're gonna have to do this when I'm done with these window selections here, so that I'm at a good point where I can do my magenta trick. Philip asked, "Can I order it through Amazon?" Jacobs, yes, you can pre-order it on there as well. You can order it through Barnes and Noble. You can order it through pretty much any online retailer. You can definitely get it on the interwebs, and Amazon is a fine place as well. Although I'm trying to kind of encourage people to go through local and bookstores and stuff, particularly with Jacobs, because it has broader distribution, and that's cool. But either way, if you want the book, there's multiple ways to get a hold of it. Yes. Okay. Here we're gonna do. Okay, we're gonna do the magenta trick, and there's my magenta trick, you guys. You see that? Da-da-da. It is kind of interesting though, seeing this start to slightly piece together. I hope you guys are kind of seeing some of the coolness of this. And I know for people who've done this before, it's not like we're talking rocket science here. I will say one thing, seeing this, I'm probably going to have a little bit of light on this. Like I might add just a tiny bit of lighting. But again, we're going to have our SFX. I did get the feedback from some feedback on that Clouder soundtrack, or the sound effects that say clatter are going to be arranged a little differently. We're going to have them recede and get smaller as they go in the back on the panel to the right. And then on this panel to the left, I'm going to move clatter a little bit closer to the object that is clattering. Okay. That being said, let's see. This is the first attempt at doing this, so you guys will have to tell me if this works. So while I am off on my break, here we are going. Speak clearly, it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around breathing pain. I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams. And look at that. That was perfect timing. Did that work? You guys have to let me know in the chats if that worked. Hopefully my audio, and did the audio play? Because I have no idea. So you guys will have to let me know. That is the trailer for Jacob's Apartment, which is actually out on June 7th, I believe. So Corey said it worked. Thank you, Corey, for the suggestion. Gary said it looked and worked great. And Anna said, he said the volume might be a little high. I'm not sure how to adjust that. But we'll see. He said it seemed to cut abruptly at the end for me. Interesting. All right. Well, it is what it is. I'll see if I can fix that up. But it might also be that my audio here isn't the best. But I'm excited because I think that'll make for more interesting breaks. So the next time I break, you guys will get two stories, the trailer for that. Because I'm all about surprises, you guys, on this stream of wild excitement. There's another Monty Python bit that I love, and I've mentioned before on stream that if you guys are ever bored, I highly recommend. It's kind of making fun of the process of writing and how boring it is. um, like how people who are fans of books would be probably like sorely disappointed if they were like, man, I would love to watch this writer work. Um, and then watched it, they'd just fall asleep. Like it's um but it's kind of poking fun at that. So it's like a whole stadium like full of people just cheering, like, a coliseum and like a track and field kind of situation. And then with individuals, that's my little Brett Keane diss there that I try to mix into everything now that Adam kindly introduced me to him. Um, but anyhow, I just got derailed by myself. I derail conversations, but I can derail myself, which I think, what the heck, it's my stream. So we're railing wherever the hell we want. But anyhow, back on point. So it's this hilarious bit where they are like, it's a coliseum full of people, and like on this track and field center stage is like just a group of like 10 writers, like all at typewriters. And then it has like sports announcers being like, they're working on the first word, and he typed, it was, it, it was. And they start like commenting on like the tense and the verbiage that the writers are writing. And then they're like, oh no, he's whiting it out. He's going back. Oh, he has to start again. And it's like, oh, he's got a good lead. Like, it's competitive writing. It was very funny because it just kind of highlights the absurdity of, like, we like, I'm a book nerd, like I absolutely love books, but it is hard to kind of glamorize some of the process, like even this where it's like, you know how do you color? Okay, it's this long, boring, you know uh tedious process of just like picking colors. It's like you imagine being a little kid and coloring a coloring book, and then you make it like really slow and really boring. And that's the process of art, which we all love. But I do think it's funny. It's not quite like those. Art is rarely going to be like one of those scenarios where it's like the draw me like one of your French girls scenarios, where in Hollywood it's like 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 you don't see the part, like, okay, the realistic version of Titanic, for instance, for anybody who's done life drawing, would be the model needing to take breaks every 10 minutes and being like, like, I don't know, this is really messing up my posture. And the the artist being like, no, 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 don't move, don't move. It'd just be like this very long, kind of boring. It's not like this, I don't know. My point is, um I think that normies, people who aren't artists, would be very shocked at just how much what we do is just work. Although I guess it's kind of fun that people have this idea that it's like a magic trick. um and maybe there's some value to that. Maybe there's some value to the mysticism of it. Yeah, Anna just said, and now Josh hit a button on his keyboard. The crowd goes wild. And Frank said, Brett Keane is now a staple of this show. I know, it's kind of amazing how he will just kind of get in there. Oh my goodness. Oh, Gary was trying to bring back the hardcore debates. I don't know, Gary. I might have to have you on to debate this on stream. But he said it's all relative. Perhaps you're quieter. Perhaps my hearing surged. Perhaps we can't really know anything. Dude, deep. And I don't know, Gary. We need to have like a blood sports debate about this. I'm just kidding. Um, Leo would draw for 45 minutes and then Kate Winslet would look at it and say, "Is that what you think I look like?" That's so true, Gary. Um, or like Leo would just be really proud of how it came out and she'd just be like, I'm exhausted. I'm going to sleep. Like this sucks. um, yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong, like life drawing, like if you're doing life drawing with somebody you care about or whatever, which I think most of us have done as young artists, and there is something cool about it. Like you're actually seeing somebody, um, and like I mean, there's nothing. There is nothing romantic about the process of life drawing on its own at all. But I'm just saying, like there, I could see like you do see someone in a way that you would never really see them romantically. Like you're not going to look at somebody. Um, so there is like a thing to it, but it's just way less. It's like everything in life where it's special, but it's just not quite what people imagine it is. I don't know if that makes sense. Like even life drawing, like I remember when I was a younger artist and I was going to art school, my friends who were kind of normies were always like, "Oh, you guys are like, how do you do the life drawing thing? That must be so awkward and weird." And it's weird because it's like maybe for the first like 5 minutes you're in a class drawing a model, it's a little awkward and weird. And then for the rest of the 5 years that you're working on your BFA and just going to life drawing classes and seeing every kind of nude you can possibly imagine, um, you just it just be it's like drawing a plant. It's like as exciting and invigorating as drawing a plant. And then the funny thing is, what a lot of non-artists don't realize is like sometimes like the models that like people who are non-artists would be like, yeah, I'm gonna draw that person. To like artists, you're like, oh man, this is boring. Like you kind of want the weird old craggly model that's got like awesome old wrinkles and like just weird challenges, to like capture. I don't know. So yeah, clip that out of context, internet. um, yeah, Gary said, I've done it for a few past loves and it can be a really lovely experience, but it kind of boils down to the model and where her head is, why she wants to do it, and how she feels about herself. Yep, totally. Very well put, Gary. And it also just depends on your headspace. Like I think oddly enough, like when I was a younger artist, it was never quite the coolest experience because I just wasn't that good at first at life drawing. And so that was always just like kind of intimidating and vulnerable and like awkward, because when you don't know life drawing, you're not going to get much of a likeness. Um, I think as I've gotten better at it, the drawing part's less awkward and weird, um, but yeah, it's never going to be quite like what Hollywood likes to make artists. Even Van Gogh, right, with like as crazy and like passionate and insane as that guy was, when he was sitting down to paint, even if he's doing like really rapid painting in a field, like on location, and getting all like expressive with his lines and stuff, it's like it's just work. I mean, it's like somebody would watch it for about 1 second and be like, "This is amazing." Like, they go back in time. I can imagine this. somebody who's a huge fan of Vincent van Gogh goes back in time. They're like, I'm going to watch Vincent lay paint on canvas. This is going to be the most amazing thing. Maybe it's like their life's wish. Like I know people who like really admire, like I don't know, like Starry Starry Night, right? Um or the I'm this is where I'm exposing how long it's been since I took art history, but the cafe in Paris, right? Um and they go back, they get a time machine. It's like their Make a Wish Foundation last wish in life. They can have anything and they decide I'm going to go back in time and check out this amazing process of Vincent van Gogh painting. And I guarantee you within 5 minutes, they'd be like, well, do you guys want to get coffee at the cafe right now? Maybe we'll just let Vincent do his thing because this is, yeah, that's Vincent. Nice to meet you. You're a brilliant painter. Call me in a month when you're done with your painting. Great work, Vincent. That's more the real, like that's the reality of it. Um, I loved Corey Kerr had this wonderful suggestion. I don't know if Corey's still in the chats, but Corey and I had a conversation about that when it came to professional workplaces, where he said one of the ways that he got a budget approved for his art team was just showing the process of cleaning up a photo like in real time. He like recorded it. He did like a screen capture or something and then showed it in real time and was like, they got bored and he's like, yeah, it's a lot of work. You don't want to sit through it. And they're like, okay, we'll approve your stuff. Cause again, I think people just, I don't know. And maybe Sensei will get there and put every remedial job out of the way where you can just kind of click a button in it and it draws for you. But till then, um, till then, it's just work. Corey said, "My best trick." I'm sorry for exposing. I just mind your best trick for content. I'm sorry, Corey, but it was a really enlightening and smart thing for me to hear you kind of say that, because you're right. Like the whole purpose of that as an exercise is like it's hard for people who have a memory of art that most artists didn't stop in like after kindergarten. A lot of us kind of kept going, and so it's hard for people who like their last memory of making art was like drawing with a crayon for like 10 minutes in and they have this fond memory of it. They're drawing stick figures and they're drawing like little shapes that, like triangles and squares that represent houses, and they're being creative, and they have a teacher who's like, be creative, have fun, how lovely, how creative. And, it's something they're going to do as a hobby and at their free time. And then they just kind of, a lot of the non-artists just kind of bail out. They're just like, this is getting hard. I quit. And then people, if they decide to be artists later on in life, after having that experience, they'll have a more recent memory of the hard work of doing art, right? But for the people who just kind of left it, that's their last memory of art. So, like, of course, they think, like, man, these people just have fun, like, because I had fun. You know what I mean? Like, it kind of makes sense. It's like my comprehension of woodwork. Like, I think I was in like a Weeblos, which is like the thing between Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts. This is where I'm getting vulnerable because that's a weird thing to talk about. But anyhow, yeah. So we did camping stuff and like learned how to shoot guns and all sorts of fun stuff. Um, Whittling wood, right? But I remember there was a point in time where we actually got to use like a legit wood shop and like turn like a wine bottle into like a mug for our parents or whatever. And you'd like glue a handle on it, and it was fun. So my memory of the experience of woodworking and like working in a crafting shop is like one of the most base level easy things you can do in a wood shop. So if somebody tells me they work in a wood shop, it's going to be a moment for me to realize, oh, that's a lot of work. It's not just like, okay, I'm going to use this cutter thing to cut the bottle in half, and then I'm going to put it on like a sander, and then I'm going to kind of sand it a little bit, and then I'm going to cut like a cool little shape and coat it in like whatever wood covering stuff there is, and then glue it on the handle. It's like that's a much easier process than what actual carpenters do, right? Um, they also remember it being easy. This is what Gary was saying. Um, Watch the polygono lasso tool in real time. Corey said, "Wild, crazy adventures with polygono lassos." Um, I do think art would be much more interesting with like in a world like that kind of narrator. In a world where people don't do art, one man uses the polygonal with his polygonal lasso tool and his wits about him decides to create a graphic novel. I don't know, guys. Did that make you want to watch the stream? No one asks a 10-year-old to build a perfect box. Yeah, that's true. Math in kindergarten was fun though. Why can't it be so fun nowadays? I don't know, because here's the thing. I used to think there's just no way it's fun, but like my son really loves math. Like he really enjoys it. And obviously he's, in like second grade, so it's like not crazy complicated math, but he's like doing math like 4 grades higher than his grade level. Um, I'm starting to think like I don't know, like that's so polar opposite from my experience because even as a kid, like by second grade, that was my weak subject and always remained my weak subject. I never did terribly at it till it got into like the more abstract stuff like algebra, but but it was just a chore for me my whole life. It's always been a chore doing math. And then watching him, I'm like, it's just kind of weird. It's like I'm blown away by it because I'm like, he just enjoys it. Like he enjoys it. It's like the easy homework for him. And I'm like, to me, it's mind blowing because I'm like, I'm watching in real time that like it goes back to that kind of talent conversation we were having before, where it's like I could study and probably get okay at it, but I'm not just like naturally just kind of like interested in it, and yet my son is like super interested in it. All right, you guys. In a world where buildings are black and white, one man decides to color them. Um, there we go. Anna said, "That's inspiring." Was that the voiceover that you're referencing is inspiring? I'm gonna just assume so. Um, all right, so we have our building started, and now it's just a matter of kind of inventing. So I'm gonna do some fun things right now. First, I'm gonna do some windows here that I want to have just a little bit of a different vibe. And then the fun thing is I get to repeat this for every panel after. Okay, so we're gonna do some fun stuff here. Yeah, I don't know. So, have you guys like kind of run into that experience too, where people will be almost like having the attitude of like, well, that's nice. That must be like really fun to do art, and they almost like view it like a quaint thing, like it's not work. Um, I don't know. I've definitely experienced that. Or people who kind of view it as like this holy thing where they're just like, I could never. And again, it's like sort of running on this assumption that somehow what we do um, is like must be just the most thrilling, the most fun. It's like when you guys had that moment where you meet someone? This is where I'm just gonna sound like a jerk, but that's okay. I don't mind. My stream, I can sound like a jerk for a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna put on my elitist hat. One of my pet peeves, one of my biggest pet peeves is when non-creatives um, talk about being creative and what their conception of creativity is. Um, does that ring true to any of you guys? Because I will tell you, one of the quickest ways for me to have to fight a giant eye roll is to hear a non-creative doing something very uncreative and saying, "This is so fun. I'm using my creativity." And you're like, that's it, it's hard to even know how to begin that conversation. Um or whether it's even worth beginning that conversation, because again, like I said, a lot of people have these memories when they were kids and they're drawing fun things. There's my hot take for the day. I just that's a pet peeve of mine. I'm curious if it is for you guys too. I should be more positive on these things, but I think there's a few things that'll annoy a lot of creatives. Um, Another is like creatives that will say, I want to do comics. And then you're like, oh, cool. What are you doing? And they're like, I haven't really done a comic. And you're like, oh, okay. Well, what have you tried to start? And you're like, well, I haven't really tried to start anything. Oh, okay. Well, what are you thinking of doing? I don't know. I just, at some point, I really want to do a comic. Um, that can be really irritating too, where you're just like, I don't know. Cause if you really want to do something, um, like for instance, I don't tell people often I really want to do accounting. I just I really want to do accounting. And then they're like, oh, okay, well, do you do your taxes? No, I hire a tax guy. Okay. Have you gone to college for that? Are you practicing that at all? No, no, no. At some point I really want to be an accountant. I I don't know. Do you? you know, that's that's one of my pet peeves too. I'm just gonna go through angry Josh rants. Um, and if you guys want me to get on the more positive note, just let me know. I'll switch gears and go more positive. That's a little bit of a hot take there too. Oh, cool. Okay, I've started a trigger conversation. This is great. Okay, Gary said my trigger is when someone suggests hints and even overlays and says you're lucky to get paid for what you do as a creative. I always want to take them to work and see how well they can do it. I love it. And then Anna said, then there's those times where people know you as creative and thus think you really enjoy any moderately creative task. Ooh, I hear you on that. Like, I don't know if people realize this. I don't know if you guys have this, but like as an artist, like one of my nightmares is going to like a social gathering where everybody's like, let's play Pictionary. Um, I just maybe it's just me, but it's like it just fills me with dread because I'm like, great, okay, so I'm at this thing and it's a social gathering and it was fun and now it's my job. Like now I have to do work. Like I wanted to do something fun and now I have to do work. And you guys think it's fun. And also the Pictionary conundrum, I don't know if maybe you guys have fun doing Pictionary, but I also hate it because like there's also this weird assumption that in like 5 seconds, you're gonna be able to draw something a million times better than someone else, and it's like, probably not. Like, if you give me 10 minutes, yeah, I'm gonna draw better than, like, a non-artist, but in 5 seconds, like, our my chicken scratch is gonna look a lot like yours, like but that's the worst too, is, like, so if you're in the Pictionary situation, there's often that like, well, you're an artist, you're going to do awesome at this, and you're like, great. I so now I'm at work and I feel under worse pressure than I would at work because everyone's expecting the artist to do the art thing at this thing. I don't know if you guys have that, but that's don't please do not have your artist friends over and be like, we're gonna play Pictionary. It's just like those paint nights. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna totally. This is just gonna be an angry artist rant. But those paint nights, you know what I'm saying? Like the like be creative and paint a mug, or like we're all gonna paint a canvas together and have an art party. I can't do it, you guys. I can't. And I can only talk about this safely because I'm talking to my art crew, my fellow artists who aren't normies out there. Um All right. Okay, more positive vibes. Although I do want to read what folks are talking about in the chats. I don't like that last color choice I made. We're undoing that one. Shift F5. Let's see. That's a little better. And maybe we're going to I'm going to do this section. Aha. And then we're going to do this section. And I promise I will give a little attention to the chats in a few seconds here. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. Look at that. We are getting there. We're starting to get a night sky. This is going to look so good when it's covered in rain. You see what I'm saying? Um all right. We're going to get in there. We're going to keep going, you guys. We're going to keep going late into the night. Okay, there's so much fun stuff. Okay. So Anna was the last one I read. Corey said, "My pet peeve is when people have not seen my art, get excited, and ask me if I want to illustrate their book." Oh, that's the worst. Especially when it, it depends too, but a lot of the time it's the worst because they'll be like, "Oh, and I'll pay you too." And then when they quote what they think you get paid, it's like extra demeaning because a lot of the time they have no idea what an illustrator charges and like how out of their range you are. Don't get me wrong, sometimes there's friends and stuff that will pay fair industry wages, but it is shocking how many people will be like, and I'll pay you to illustrate my book. And you're like, okay, a 24-page kid's book. Okay, what were you thinking? And they're like, $50 for 24-page book. And you're like, all right, well, how about I give you a middle finger and here's my card that says go F yourself. Anyhow, yeah. And then let's see. Anna said, like painting a wall with a solid coat of paint or arranging flowers or decorating cakes. Then again, I have a friend who's an artist who actually does cake decorating, like legit for a living. Um, but her cakes are like, again, like she'll spend like a day on a wedding cake that looks like a masterpiece when it's done. Asking illustrators to design logos. I'm mixed on that because some illustrators can cross hit and design logos, but yeah, I don't know how many more kids' books I can hear pitches for. Well, and the worst part is, again, everyone thinks it's like the most unique thing that they've come up with a concept that they haven't iterated or made real. Um, Not understanding that there are a lot of different ties of design, and I hate website design. Yeah, I totally get that. That was from Corey. Pictionary, Philip was saying, "Why you're an artist, you'll be amazing at this." Yeah, so I guess I'm not alone on that. Frank said, "I'm back. I was gonna buy Pictionary today." Frank is ever the contrarian, but actually, Pictionary can be fun. Just I can't stand it. Um, so Pictionary, you either have to destroy or disappoint people. Yeah, for sure. Gary, I saw a game that reminded me of your job. That's what Frank said. Corey said the lesson tonight is don't invite Josh over. That's true. I'm just a bitter old man. Um, and then Anna said, I found out that paint nights seem to be usually more about social side rather than art. Yeah, and again, like that's cool, but if I'm gonna it's kind of like oh, and then Philip was saying, but the exposure, yeah, the exposure trap. But on the paint night thing, that's the thing is like so right now today, I have worked on illustrations and graphic design for 8 hours, and then I went home, I took a nap, and now I'm gonna work till 2 in the morning on illustration and graphic design. So if I have, like, a moment, like a window of time, let's say in, like, a month, where I'm able to go out for, like, a social gathering, and people are like, "Hey, let's paint." To me, that that's like telling a plumber, like, "You know what would be really fun, guys? We should have people over. It'll be awesome. We're gonna unclog toilets. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna do plumbing, you guys. It's great. We'll have wine. We're gonna" or telling a construction worker, like, "You guys, we're gonna all get together and we're gonna work on pouring concrete. It's gonna be so fun." That's what I'm getting at. It's like it's not relaxing for for me. You know? If I have a day off, like, I kinda don't know if I wanna do art, you know? Now if I'm not working on, like, art projects and stuff like that, or I haven't seen friends in a while, like, don't get me wrong, I'll make an exception. I'll hang out with friends. I'll bite the bullet. But I'm just saying, I think those paint nights are what non-creative I this is where I'm gonna sound judgy, but it's like, I think that's what non-creatives will do to feel creative for a minute, and that's okay. It's just like it's a bummer when they think that creatives are gonna be the same. Then again, that might just be me. Maybe I'm just a grumpy curmudgeon, and, in that case, I don't know. I don't know how to save that part of myself because I think the second I start thinking about stuff like that, there's just, like, endless topics. We could go down a super negative train, guys. But, uh but anyhow, so that was my venting for the day. But, I mean, yeah, I just and then the tough part is if you try to explain the plumber thing I was just explaining, where it's like, "Hey, do you, like" I don't know, let's say you do data entry all day at work, and then somebody was like, "You know what we should do, you guys? Let's get this spreadsheet and let's freaking just we're just gonna get in there and we're gonna enter data just for fun. We're just gonna like it's gonna be crazy. I'm gonna bring wine. It's gonna be the best experience, you guys. We're gonna like data entry the whole day and show the world how much data we can make." Um, and I mean, I guess like a paint night like that, it is a fun time to like flex if you want to, kind of like Pictionary, like Gary alluded to. It can be fun if you want to like kind of flex your skills where you're just like, dude, you want to paint your mug? I'm gonna paint this mug. You know what I mean? Like you're gonna paint, and then I'm gonna paint it. You know, so There is that part of it. That could be fun. I could imagine if you were a single person trying to impress a date, as an artist, like, doing something like that would be a very good time to kind of assert your skills and dominance. But I don't know. I just, for me, that doesn't sound like a fun weekend. That sounds like a nightmare where, if friends were like, "Dude, we're gonna, like" the drinking wine part sounds fun, but just, like, I don't know. To me, the idea of, like, "Hey, let's get together and work on our projects that we're already working on," that sounds awesome. Or let's get together and just not do art at all. Or let's, like, go sketch from life. Like, let's go hang out and just draw people. That sounds fun. But yeah, let's hang out in a room with people who don't paint, sort of playing at doing the thing you've dedicated your life to. Yeah, doesn't sound as fun. I I openly admit a lot of this sounds very elitistic and terrible. So chat, let me know if this is like cancelable, terrible uh, stuff. Anna said, Pictionary can be fun, but I can't stand it. Exactly. I did get asked recently if I draw people. After I sent some references of what I draw, they said I can draw scenes for their webcomic. I had no interest in doing that. That was Frank. Anna said, maybe it's creativity is a spectrum. I don't agree. I'm gonna disagree just for content. I probably do actually agree, but just for fun, because I'm in a stubborn mood, I'm just gonna say no. No. Creativity is a skill that requires practice, and some people take it seriously and do creative work, and then some people play at it. That's what I will say about creativity. And we all have the capacity to be creative, but it's like anything else where you have your surface level. It's like surface level reading. Anyone can read and anyone can learn how to read. And I think creativity is very much like that, where most people can learn how to read. Most people can learn how to appreciate books and literature, but a lot of it comes from practicing and engaging in the practice. Um, that I don't know. I kind of don't think. I guess so. Yes, it's a spectrum, but I think people are way further off on the spectrum when they're being creative. Sometimes non-creatives, when they're being creative, are further off on the spectrum than they themselves are aware of. That's where I'm going to kind of go down on that. And then let's see. Gary said, I don't know. I can have a couple of glasses of wine and I'll go ahead and paint a still life with some chicks. Yeah. I'm like, that I can, like, again, like, that could be it can be a good place to just kind of assert, like, here, I'm going to do this. And painting for fun can be fun. Um, let's see here. Oh, Frank said that's what paint nights are. I thought they were real painting. I prefer drinking coffee. Yeah, paint nights are like there's things where it's usually a girls' night out, and or it's like hipsters who are like, let's go paint. We're gonna drink wine and paint, and you know, it's usually not people who paint. Anna said scribble. Um, oh, she said asserts dominance with art. LOL. And then she said scribble, just chill and scribble for a few hours. I like that. Gary said bludgeon everyone over the head with your palette, metaphorically. And then Corey was saying creativity is a lifestyle that engenders certain skills. Yeah, I agree. And there's a taste component too, which varies dramatically. Yes, agreed, Gary. And oh, Anna says however the creative needs are what make up the spectrum I'm referring to. And then Corey said, not so. Creativity has to involve production or even improvement or focus. It's a healthy expression for all humanity. I agree, but I'm just saying it's like if it's an expression, there's some people who are really good with language, and it's because they practice the art of conversation or communication. And creativity is a similar practice. So, there's people who are very in tune with creativity and are doing creative work, and there's people who can be very creative and very effective at being creative who aren't doing creative work, but maybe they're doing creative activities. And then there's people who think they're being creative and they're not really engaging in creativity at all. I'm just going to try to see how far I can push this to sound all curmudgeon-y, um, and elitistic when I'm really, in theory, just kind of agreeing with everyone in chat. But it's still fun to get kind of grumpy and contentious. Okay. How are we doing here? I'm feeling, oh man, my body is like clockwork. Okay. You guys will notice this. It's about at the 10 tell an hour mark where my brain and body will be like, dude, you need to break, you need to get up, you need to stretch your legs. And also, like, I have a feeling inside that's like, I need to see the trailer for my graphic novel, Two Stories. Um, Frank said, it's 2 a.m. I have no time for curmudgeons. And then Gary said, I think there's a Venn diagram with creativity and craft that doesn't totally overlap. And I do think it's tough because I've seen people who do creative things with even craft that could challenge the most creative of artists because it's so engaged and creative. But I just think I quite often run across people who think they're being creative and they aren't. Or they, again, it's like the kids book thing. There's a lot of people who don't realize that like sometimes there are ideas that are golden, that the idea itself without execution is so on point. I remember this from t-shirts where I remember okay, there were no Captain Obvious t-shirts. And this is like when I was making a living as a t-shirt artist. And I had a friend of mine who's another artist who was just like, "Hey Josh, I don't have time to do this, but how about this Captain Obvious as a t-shirt?" And this is before the Captain Obvious commercials and all that, but it was still a parlance. Like it was a phrase that was used on the internet all the time, and there were like no memes or images. That idea at the time I knew would make a crap load of money if I executed it right. And so I literally felt like that was such a strong creative idea that I halved the credit for the design. Even though I came up with the concept broader than that, all the type that was on the t-shirt, I built it out from there. But that nugget was such a gem that it was worth half the royalties of one of my best-selling designs. That's how strong I think a good idea can be. Like just an idea that's like one phrase that hasn't been done that's going to make a lot of money. That's the idea that's so obvious that like no one's done it. It's the Captain Obvious floating out there. Um and it was so good that people ripped it off instantly. Like the second it went out there, like everyone made a Captain Obvious shirt. um it, so that's like one of those that was a great idea. But when you have somebody like when I was doing t-shirts in particular, I'm kind of glad in a weird way I'm not doing t-shirts because this was tough. Like and you try to be nice to people, but they come up to you and be like, have you thought about doing a shirt that has a cat? That would be a great idea for a shirt. It would have a cat on it, and it's a shirt, and it says, I love cats, and it's for cat people. And I just think that's the greatest thing. when you hear an idea like that, it's a little different. Where it's like, that's not an idea. And I mean, yeah, in theory that could, like, I have no idea if that's gonna be good. Like, that could work, I guess. So, when you hear that, and I know you guys have had that experience, it's like you wanna be like, "Okay, well, thank you," and be nice, but also, like, do we have to be nice with that? Oh my gosh. Frank, am I being too much of a curmudgeon? Let me know as my moderator in my chats if I'm getting too spicy here. If if the food I'm serving right now has too much sriracha, I need to like pull back a little bit, take some of the heat off. I will. Um. Oh my gosh, this is getting there. Oh, Gary said, I'm done drawing for the day. Thanks for something to listen to and read while I worked. And then Corey said, well, thank you, Gary, for hanging. Um, oh, and then he said, and Salazar Art Nation, watch yourself. Thanks, Gary. Corey said, that's a level of ivory tower that I'm not down with. If people are getting something out of it, I don't care. Do it. No gatekeepers. I agree with that too. Um, I just think, just like also have a healthy respect for the people doing work. Like if I want to hobby build a guitar, that's great, and I don't think anything should stop me from doing that. But I shouldn't probably talk to like a professional luthier and then suddenly be like, yeah, I build guitars when I'm like just starting to dip into it. I should at least be like a little humble if I talk to like a pro luthier and be like, hey, like I'm kind of delving into this territory. I've run into these things. How do you like ask a lot of questions, and definitely like I don't think I should, because I maybe noodled around with a couple guitars, like walk around calling myself a luthier, right? Let's see here. If they start arguing quality, craft, etc., then I take issue. Interesting. Gary said, I'm averse to the ivory tower thing too, but there's people who cook and people who think cooking is I add a pinch of red pepper flakes to the jar of ragu. There is a distinction. I agree. That's the thing. I wish people would not assume they're chefs when they're cooking. I don't know if that makes sense. Like, there's a difference between like a Michelin star chef and a cook. And you can cook great food as a cook, right? There's also a difference between a cook and then like somebody who's cooking and following a recipe. And again, you can end up with really great results, but there's just a difference in skill, in dedication, in talent, um, and in practice, right? And it'd be weird if I was like a guy who like I'm microwaving fettuccine alfredo, which is kind of honestly, I'm not really a great cook at all. So I'm microwaving fettuccine alfredo, and then I'm talking to like a chef who makes their own pasta, right? Like they hand make pasta, and they're like maybe a Michelin star chef or something. And I'm like, hey, I'm a chef too. I microwave my food. I mean, technically, I guess, right? You both prepare food, but it's just, I don't know. I think it's kind of absurd if we're pretending there aren't like differences. Um, let's see here. Frank said, I'm not sure what I said. Was it Pictionary? And Gary said, good, keep you off balance. Okay. My mom said I like to be different, and that's why I disagree with people. So you might be correct about me being a contrarian, Josh. Ah, that's interesting. Well, I think we like to. I don't know. I feel like contrarianism is in my blood as well. So there's nothing wrong with being a contrarian. The world needs good contrarians, my dude. So definitely hope you understood that that was a compliment. Um, because yeah, we need contrarians. I feel like a good example. A really terrible workplace would fire contrarians. Like you kind of need people who think outside of the box and challenge things and try to come up with different ideas. Just in speaking of like creative, right? And so there's value to contrarians. And then Frank, like a true contrarian, said, "I disagree." Okay, let's see. What do we have here? Anna said demonetized for hate speech. I get told I have talent. I stop disagreeing. That's funny. A lot of fun going on in the chats. Okay, we're almost at that hour point where I'm going to take another break. And in order to do this, well, first, what I have to do is all of these windows. So let's deselect these windows. These windows right here, you guys. They're very exciting windows. They're very action-packed windows. I'll admit though, like I used to be a lot more. I can be a snob. I'll admit that as a human being. And I also can be a little prideful of my work. And maybe sometimes like like unhealthily so. So I will admit to that. However, I also think sometimes when you do something for a living, there's just things that, I'm sure probably honestly, construction guys overhear somebody saying, "Yeah, I was working in the yard the other day and I built this thing." And they're like, "Yeah, did you though?" Like, you know what I mean? I think there's just a nature of like when you do something for long enough, you're kind of like, you get a little judgy. But I will agree with like Corey. I think the heart of it of like I don't know. I mean, there's a classic South Park episode. I'm curious if Corey's seen this. I don't know if Corey watches South Park at all, but there was like this is like a long ago, but it was like there was an episode where everybody was drinking their own smug and getting I think they were getting high off of their own smug in like a university. And there's a bit of that in the arts for sure, where it's like, I definitely have some times where I'll pour myself a glass of smug and I'll enjoy drinking it. So to be honest, I'm kind of riffing here with just a little bit of in good fun. Um, keeping in mind that I'm speaking to other creatives. Um, and then there's some truth, there is some truth, I think, to some frustrations in that territory. And with that being said, um, I need to refill my glass of smug here, and we have deselected the windows. How about that? And now we're gonna get to this and hit Shift F5. You guys, slowly but surely, this page will be beautifully and wonderfully flatted. We're getting closer, you guys. We're getting closer. And that being said, all right, guys. So we're getting close. Now I'm going to put on another wonderful trailer. And this is for my book, Two Stories. It's going to say December 14th or something on that. That's from the era that this came out, which was like about a couple years ago now. But this book is available on Amazon today. So if you want to order it, or if you haven't yet, or if you want to buy one for a friend, makes a really good gift. And now I'm going to play that beautiful Two Stories trailer. And because this trailer is a little bit longer, I have to play it in a different way than I did with the other. I found myself, and I'm not going to start it yet. I hope you guys could hear that. I'm not going to start it yet. And now I'm going to go take a coffee refill break. We've still got a good 2 hours to work. I appreciate you guys hanging with me while I'm doing that. And I'm going to pop this on. Oh, I thought I was going to make that main stream. Okay. And I will talk to you guys in a bit. I'll be right back. Speaking resonance, I found myself an instrument to play. Out so awkwardly, my fingers weave this clumsy tapestry. Sound and fury testifying to the wrongs and rights I've seen. Is this a dream? Where is the boat? Where is the stream? Is this a dream? Where is the boat and where is the stream? And so we sing, maybe this is all a bad dream. Wake up from. Hi, I'm Joshua Kemble, and I'm the artist behind Two Stories Book 1, which is out right now for pre-order on Amazon from Marcosia Enterprises. It's a book that I spent a good amount of years creating, hand lettering, hand drawing, and hand inking every page with a lot of sincerity and care because I thought the story was really important to tell. It's a story that speaks really openly about mental illness and mental health issues, which I find really not to be very common in the graphic novel medium. And it's also autobiographical, and that's kind of a hard sell for a lot of people. But I really have a strong belief that there are enough people out there who want to hear stories that speak openly about struggles with mental illness and with faith that it can do well. And so I kind of am hoping that anybody who's watching this might check out the pages. You can even see like a very brief preview on quarterlystories.com, including a video that shows the whole of chapter 1. And also watch this trailer video, and hopefully just go to Amazon, pre-order the book, and support indie comics. If you guys like independent comic books and you like comics that go a little bit beyond just the superhero story and sincere stories about faith and struggles with faith and mental illness, then please consider supporting this by pre-ordering it on Amazon at the link that'll be provided at the end of this video and is also in the show notes. And to all of those of you who've supported me throughout the creation of this, I really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the book. Dream haunts us all and we measure it in songs. All right, I did that work. I'm experimenting with this. You guys are going to be seeing that almost like a commercial on my streams whenever I am getting up for a coffee break. I think that's a little more exciting than kind of hearing all the arbitrary stuff. I will also say you'll notice that my hair's gotten a little longer magically. So obviously that was recorded before the release of that book. But I encourage you guys, if you haven't read it, give it a shot. It's a pretty exciting book. The funny thing is because that is a song on one of my albums, it will probably demonetize my video, which will then monetize to my album, which which is kind of weird, but the place that I released it to just kind of automatically does that with any usage of my music, even if it's my own usage. And so it's kind of weird because it's still it just ends up in this weird kind of territory that I think might be kind of a fun topic. Maybe on Artcasters at some point we'll have like an artist on or something. I will say, I heard from David really recently, um, about the potential of like kind of doing something together and maybe on Artcasters. Um, so I have yet to hear. He kind of reached out to me in email, and it's about a potentially cool thing. David Chelsea, one of my favorite artists, and frequent guest of the Artcasters. So I'm kind of excited to see how that goes. But that's like a little teaser for stuff that may happen or may not happen soon on Artcasters. For those of you who like the Artcasters, which I'm guessing if you're watching my channel, you probably like Artcasters, the show I do with Corey Creer and Scott Cirkland. And we're continuing, you guys, on this long road. The nice thing is, as it proceeds in the background, I don't know if I need as much information. And I think I'm going to pull a little bit of this red and just give like some variations on it, for the brickwork. But I might be jumping to brickwork a little too soon. Yep, I'm jumping a little too soon here, guys. We're going to get back to the goal here is to kind of make sure that hopefully the residents that I have here, I want to have kind of stick out a little bit. I also don't want to cop out and just have the whole thing recede into total darkness in the back. Oh, Frank said, I guess we need to not make WA7 then, no superheroes. No. Hey man, the thing that got me into comics is superhero comics. I will defend superhero comics, and I'll tell you, I need to actually, in fact, you know what's neat? Because of the fact that I am constantly having to draw this stuff, I don't even have time to look up what time Moon Knight. Do you guys know what day of the week Moon Knight is on? Because I watched the one break I allowed myself. This is just to defend superhero stuff. I am literally on a weird schedule right now where every free moment, every waking moment, I am working on this book. However, the one break, the 2 hours that I allowed myself to not do that when I was awake, I watched Moon Knight episode 1 and 2, and I really enjoyed it. I'm digging pretty much like I like the what Disney's doing with the Marvel TV shows a lot. And honestly, I really like Moon Knight, and I think Oscar Isaac's amazing. Do you guys know what day of the week that the next one's on? Because I want to watch episode 3. That's the one thing I'm going to allow myself to do this week. That's not comics. We're hanging out with my kid. um, so anyhow, that's to defend a little bit of superhero stuff. I think superhero stuff is great. I just think it's sad if we're in an industry where that's all we have. To me, I think like, yeah, I have a dream. This is my dream speech of like where I'd ideally like to see the comics industry. Where I'd like to see the comics industry is where we have. Also on this channel, I always talk about like Dave Pilkey and like how much I admire him. I'll actually defend Dave Pilkey. I think that Dogman is some of the best comics ever. It got my kid into comics. Um, anyhow, but I was also gonna say, I just think it's a shame if like if I went like I like thrillers too. I like books that are fun. Like I like reading like a Michael Crichton book or something. It's like it's fun to read action adventure stuff. Or like suspense or thrillers or like a Stephen King novel. But wouldn't it be a shame if like you went to a bookstore and that's all there was just Stephen King novels? Um, as great as Stephen King is, it's like there's so much more to books. There's so many different genres. And the nice thing about literature and fiction, at least, is there's different sections, right? Like you go to the library and you can get historical fiction, you can get all this stuff. For some reason in comics, and this is changing, and to be honest, I'm like, that's one of the reasons I'm really excited about this book. Um, it we're seeing a little bit of a change where like this is starting to happen in comics where eventually, wouldn't it be great if like instead of comic books being in a graphic novel section, they're just in the same section as books? Like it's so weird to me that because they have pictures, they aren't just classified as books? Like why can't I go to the sci-fi section and see graphic novels sci-fi and then like, why does it have to be separate? That's what I'm getting at. Like, why is it treated like it's not an art form that's telling stories? Like, movies have different genres. Um, I feel like it's been in a bit of the same rut as like the one industry that's very similar is animation too, where animation has so much variety to it, but for some reason it's still at the point where like at the Oscars, they're like, these are cute little cartoons, when they announce it. um, I want to see a change in the perception of what these things are, and in order for that to happen, creators need to start making things that aren't just the same. However, uh, that being said, I love that stuff, and I think that um, it's important to make. Let's see here. Philip said, "I'm afraid I have to call it here. It's way past my bedtime. Glad I stayed up for your book trailers, though. Thanks, man. Thanks, Philip, for hanging with us. I appreciate you coming to the stream all the time. Um, honestly, it's fun to have company while I'm up working late into the night, working on this exciting adventure of making comics. Let's see here." Corey said something about Wednesday. Oh, Wednesday is when, thank you, Corey. Wednesday is when Moon Knight is out. So that means tonight, perhaps. Not I'll wait till later in the week, but it's nice to know when it's out at least. That might be my one allowance for a break. Seems like that's okay, white with kind of a cream. So let's start with the cream section. Because cash rules everything around me, and now I'm filling this with cream as a real stretch of an attempt to do Cream, a song by Wu-Tang, shout out. Okay, so we've got that. I like that kind of being more, because if this goes to white, now it's not going to recede as much. So that whole section there, is going to stay cream. And we're on to the next building. So the nice thing about flatting is it does speed up as you're going. Oh, Anna said, I'd like to stay up, but I'll also tap out. Nice to see you, Anna. And I appreciate you coming and hanging out on stream. Have a good night. And yeah, you guys should be watching and subscribe to Tarako Creative Cast. It's a fun show. Frank and Anna are doing great stuff. WA7, aka the new chapter of Captain Goggles and Mask Woman, is technically not a superhero book. And Frank said he needs to tap out as well. Good night, Frank. Have a good night. All right, so what do we have now? We're going to do this next section, which is going to be all right. What do we got? I want to do the red, but like a darker note of that. Or just a slightly different hue, because we might be getting into this sort of mud territory otherwise. So maybe it's going to start getting a little purplish as it recedes back into this kind of purple night sky. The purple platypus. I was trying to think of a P, like there's a lot of P words. How many alliterations could I make of that? Plotting and picking pecks of pickled peppers. I will say, like, it is funny when you're sleepy and working on art where the mind goes. To me, like, sometimes my brain will try to kind of come up with like alliterations or something to kind of keep my brain engaged whilst doing this. What do we have here? All right. I still have a good hour and a half to do this and to continue this, and I'm hoping that the process will slightly speed up as I am going. So let's make that happen, you guys. Time to power through it. I'm kind of curious for those watching how your creative projects are coming along. I feel like half the challenge is just kind of showing up. And then also just trying to keep faith in it. We've talked about this a little bit, like faith on stream. But I think like the process of doing anything kind of requires, Corey touched on this a little bit, but it's like I think the process of engaging in anything in life requires a certain amount of faith. And I will definitely say that's very true of like art practice. You kind of just have to like trust the process. It's a very strange thing. Corey said he is playing video games. What video games are you playing, Corey? Don't tell me you got sucked into Elden Ring. Did Gary convince you to do Elden Ring? Frank was also asking Corey about stickers and their arrival. What are these mysterious stickers you speak of, Frank? Okay. And we're going to do, I think on this, and the trim is kind of white and then the gray. So we're going to do a mix here. Do a little bit of the white to keep a little variety in the color. We're using a pretty limited palette, so whenever I introduce a color, I'm going to try to kind of repeat it. Like I think these work really well as white, so we're going to do that. And I don't know about this base part. That's more of like a, yeah, that's a white, but again, I don't like it interfering with the wimple, so I might go with, I might be a little inventive here and just kind of say, maybe it's gray? Let's see. Is that too much? Nope, that works very effectively. Look at that. We do need to do a Little Mermaid cast, I think. I don't know how we would make that happen. Corey, do you think that should be just like an Artcasters production? And if so, would you be in on it? Where we have a bunch of artists do the Little Mermaid soundtrack. And I mean like we all collectively progressively work our way through the entire one. Oh, Corey said his game is Just Cause 3. I'm not familiar with any games, but I'm glad to hear it's not Elden Ring, because of all the games that I have friends getting sucked into, that's the one that I know people, I see people just kind of disappear off the face of the earth playing that game. I guess it's very immersive, as Gary has attested to, although I think he's balancing it okay. I don't think he needs an intervention yet. Okay. Corey said it. I missed the Little Mermaid thing. So we were musing on a podcast. I think it was a previous stream where I think Frank had sung part of your world from the Little Mermaid on cast on stream. And what was surprising was it just dawned on me that all it takes is for like one person to say, "Look at this stuff, isn't it neat?" And instantly I just have the whole song pop into my head. Because I'm of a certain generation where that soundtrack was on rotation at my house. And so I probably could work my way through an entire Little Mermaid soundtrack. And it was brought up that it would be funny to have all the members of our art community rock the entire Little Mermaid soundtrack from front to back, like just, karaoke the entire thing. Now, this is kind of memeing a little bit, like kind of like the kayaking bears thing, but I still think it would be funny. And if we did it, would you do it? A, and would B, you be able to do it? Because I have a suspicion you probably could, because we're about the same age range. Yeah, Frank said he mentioned that he had sung it on Atom String. That would be where it came from. But yeah, so it was just a thought of like, it would be funny for everybody to sing The Little Mermaid collectively as a group. It could be like a challenge where we have to get through the entire soundtrack. Okay. Anyhow, so we are getting some progress going on. The interesting thing is here's where I need opinions. Um, what do you guys think I should do if I get to a third hour? Because it's looking like that will happen. So at the third hour that I'm doing the stream, what should I do for? Do you think it would be too much looping to have it play a rotating again, like play Jacob's trailer again? Um, is that too much? Would it be better to just leave dead air at that point, or do you think just rotate through it um, and play it again like a good old advertisement? And that way it gives you, like, as a viewer, what would you guys prefer? Because I'm kind of curious about that. Let's see. I think this is going to be more in that territory of, is this more in that browns? Nope, this is in that reds territory. There we go. 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 Corey said I could likely sing every song. And then, or just binge listen to the soundtrack till you get the hang of it. Do you have a trailer for Numb? No, I do not. Numb was made before YouTube. Like, it might actually be before YouTube existed. Or at least YouTube was a thing. But it was definitely predates before I was on YouTube. Let's see here. I do have a second Two Stories trailer, but I don't have it loaded up. So if you had to choose between Dead Air or watching one of those trailers again, which would you prefer? Because that's kind of the options we have on the table for at least the palette tonight. It's a good suggestion, though. Maybe I'll, for the future, I think I might preload the other Two Stories trailer as well, because there's a Christmas themed one as well. I think right now, particularly because Jacobs is coming out soon, I'm gonna probably just cycle to that one again for anybody, because I do think that's probably more interesting than Dead Air for people. That's what I would guess. I know it's kind of a weird question I'm asking you guys too. Okay, let's see here. Is that even? I deselected something I shouldn't have. How dare I? Okay. F5. Okay, here we go, and we're getting through this panel. I just forgot that this is the catch. I forgot the flats take this long. So right now we have 1, 2, 3 flatted. That's kind of where we're at, almost at the point of 3 panels flatted. I'm going to do, this one will be back to the brown. Oh, wait. I want to see the area under that is kind of like a cream again. Get the money, dollar bill, y'all. I'm here all night, guys, with these amazing jokes. Okay. I remember still being at the age where when Cream came out by Wu-Tang, it was like this mind-blowing thing because 36 Chambers was a very revolutionary and like it's hard to explain how impactful that album was like when it came out. It was like it made all the kind of supposed gangster rap at the time just seem like really tame. It just it seemed like the most raw, um, just like yeah, it was like underground. It felt like punk rock, but in hip hop form. And so like, but I also remember feeling all smart when I did the math and realized that CREAM was cash rules everything around me and being like, it's an acronym. I'm so smart. Um, I'm only highlighting that because if I've seemed like an elitist at all on here, um, or snobby, I'm also a guy who like thought that that was a profound realization when it was pretty like most people figured that out pretty early on. They're like, yeah, it's CREAM. Cash rules everything around me. It took me a few minutes, a little bit to figure that out. And then I was like, oh, that's so cool. So keep that in mind if I'm ever getting kind of snarky about stuff. Be like, this guy is also a guy who couldn't figure out a basic acronym. Okay, let's see here. One small commercial per hour is completely fine. That was from Corey. Uh, Frank said YouTube wasn't even a twinkle in my eye. Oh my gosh. Check this out. This is another, I don't know why. I'm just going to talk about Monty Python bits, but one of the other best Monty Python bits is riffing on old men doing the when I was your age, like, you know, things were hard. I had to walk like for 20 miles in the snow or whatever. It's guys doing that, but then they start one upping each other on like how bad their past was until until one of them's like, "Oh yeah, you think you had it bad? Well, we used to wake up at 3 in the morning, lick the floor clean, like had to lick the asphalt clean with our tongues, and then if we were lucky, we were rewarded with 50 lashes against." And it just gets worse and worse and worse about like their pasts until it just becomes an absurdity where it's like they don't even sleep. They're like, I mean, it's just it's very funny. It's a good bit. But it starts as like the premise being like the, oh yeah, yeah, when we were young, we used to have it hard. Kind of kind of I don't know why that Monty Python's permanently etched on my brain. Speaking of, I do feel like this is starting to feel like a London night. I don't know if I'm digging the purple anymore, so we're gonna kind of take a look at that once all our flats are laid out. But I do think once there's rain, that purple might look pretty cool. All this work for stuff that's just pretty much covered and lost, but such as mango. Okay, here we go. Can you catch a wave and hold it in your hand, you guys? Okay. We have stuff here. Okay. Do you think I like that being kind of, it's going to get a little more abstract up here. I do feel like that's a little iconic, so we do want to get that color a little bit more correct. Okay. Do you think this is going to be? I think this stream. Oh, Frank just linked to the stream where the Little Mermaid was mentioned. Love it. Little Mermaid art cast. We might get demonetized. So super chats would be the way to go. Yeah, I don't know. We'll have to kind of think about it, but I think that would be hilarious. One of the things I like about the Artcasters crew, though, is like we're quite often people who will have like a crazy idea and then actually say yes to it. And that's a good group of creatives to have in your camp. Because one of the best environments to be creative in is an environment that's like a very like improvisational environment, like a yes and kind of scenario. As cliche as that is to say, it's like I do think that fosters creativity. The easiest way to like kill creativity is to kind of be like the no and like kind of environment, because a no environment is like an environment where people are afraid to make mistakes, where they're kind of self-conscious and like worried about outcomes, and that's not the best environment to do the outside of the box kind of crazy thoughts kind of thing. But I think for creatives, it's like you get in this zone of like yes and that creates a lot of really cool outcomes, or can sometimes. However, sometimes it's definitely valuable to have a no. So, but I'm just saying I do appreciate that about the Artcasters crew. I even remember that for like the 300th episode of Artcasters was really hilarious, where it spawned from an idea that Scott was just like, yeah, we got to do a 300 themed thing. And then he edited like a full out kind of amazing intro. Like Scott's definitely one of those people. If he does something, he's going to commit to it, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I kind of like I. It's one of those things I want to do. For me right now, it's more of like an organizational thing of like it's on the list of things I want to do. Um, so now it's more of a matter of like how and when, not so much of like whether to or not. Because I think it would just be hilarious, and even if like 3 people watch it, it would just be funny to have, for all of us. Like I think it would be hilarious, sort of have that in our back pocket as a memory. It's like an accomplishment, you know. We're getting there, you guys. We're getting there. This crazy space of of stuff here. It's starting to come together. Very, very much so. The only catch is I have to kind of see it all the way through. If I start just kind of filling in like large areas, it starts looking like, that's another trick with art. I don't know if you guys find this, but quite often if you have a moment where you're like, no one will notice, um, those are the things people notice. So if I had a moment where I'm just like, I'm done flatting this page and I just left this as blue, it's like, even if like no one notices, I feel like they externally know, or not externally, sorry, internally, I think they know. They just know. They're like, this page, there was a lot of time spent on it. And then there's the section that like the artist just got like bleh about. And I don't even know if they'd be able to verbalize that that's why they aren't super happy with it or whatever, but I think people just know. I think we know more than we let on to aesthetically, And that goes to like that sort of broader, more positive point about creatives where it's like people do have a sense of natural wonder and creativity. And I think quite often, maybe because they're out of practice with the verbalizing it, um, they aren't aware of like how to kind of put it into words. But I do think people have like a sense when something's off. Um, and I think that I remember when I was teaching, there would be like these moments where like a student just kind of copped out at like a part of a drawing, and I'd just honestly ask, I'd be like, did you get kind of bored when you got to this section here? And they would look at me like I was some kind of, like fortune teller or something. Because I don't think they were aware that it doesn't require like a lot of heavy reading into it. It's just like it just sort of says that like the art speaks what you put into it. It's one of those more ethereal things where if you check out and you could care less um, on a project, the sections you do that on like show. Um, and that's another part of that weird kind of faith part of making art where you just kind of have to proceed forward and have faith that if you stay engaged and interested in what you're doing and find things to keep like different challenges and stuff to keep your mind in it. If you stay in it, like the magic kind of happens. And also you'll have like the wherewithal to kind of see it through um, to a level that you probably won't if you allow yourself to kind of check out. And when I'm saying you in this case, I'm talking about me. I've found that in my own art, and I've given that advice to illustration students too, of like being engaged and like in it. Like, don't you know? Kind of don't have try to avoid those moments where you lose interest because those moments can, like in this case, now that I've added that part up top, that's like one of my favorite parts now. And if I had just copped out and had like just one solid shape here, I'd miss out on this nice little detail back here that might end up being one of my favorite parts of the whole thing. So I'm a firm believer in that. That might be like like an individual choice kind of thing, but it's definitely a belief I have in art where I think that there's an innate thing that's known, that's unspoken, but it's definitely there. And people know it whether they can verbalize it or not. All right, so we're getting close to that 3-hour mark. If you guys are still with me, I do appreciate it. It's fun to have people hanging with me. Corey, if you're still playing Just Cause, keep at it, buddy. You've kind of earned it. You worked your butt off during sabbatical. By the way, how is the movie coming along, dude? I do think sometimes we can be really hard on ourselves too as creatives, where we're like, like if you take a day off, you just feel like immense guilt. Um, and I think sometimes it's okay to be like, I'm gonna play video games for a while. In my case, my little allowance is I'm gonna watch Moon Knight. If I have the time and ability, just for my own sanity too, I'm gonna need an hour so I don't start separating myself from humanity and losing my mind or something. Follow up where Josh asked Scott if he'd seen The Little Mermaid. Oh, nice. I like it. So, Frank is like following through the through lines of our older episodes. So you can get the whole lowdown and follow the thread, the chain of how it came to be, how it came to pass. All right, here we go. And getting there, guys. I'm gonna slam through this page, and I've got a good hour, so it would bum me out if we only get through flatting one panel. um, but that may just be what it needs to be, you know? Okay. Okay, this can go to that. All of this can go there except for there's a few things. I want that doorway a little different. And I like this. Doorway is going to go to that blue. Oh, that's too bad. Frank said I think Adam deleted the one where Frank sang the Little Mermaid. Maybe it's just unlisted or something. Who knows? All right, so at this point, in about 10 minutes, I'm going to play the Jacobs trailer again for everybody. And I really want to thank Corey for that recommendation. I can't remember, Corey, if it was you or Scott. I think it was both of you guys, but I think that you helped me figure out how to do it, which was kind of cool. So I very much appreciate that. And I do think it's going to be viable. So it's cool to know. Just cool to know that's even possible to do. So I like that. This is where we're going to get into that weird territory of more abstraction because really I'm just going to have to speculate on what all of this is back here. I want to have this somewhat matching. It's well worth the effect, though. I'm really loving the subtlety and the way this is reading. It is looking really neat. You know what would be tragic is if I put in all this time, and this can happen in art, especially when you're experimenting with a new style. You can definitely have moments where you lose, 6 hours or 4 hours on a project that you're just like, oh man, I made a completely wrong move, and this isn't coming out at all the way I intended it. And honestly, the only way you kind of get to where you can confidently kind of go forward and it does wind up working out is having enough of those times of like putting in those hours and being like, ooh, I made a wrong step, I think even coming up with the style for this book was like sort of the result of some possible mistakes that I might have made on a project long ago. And then maybe some happy mistakes where I was like, hey, wait a minute, that looks kind of cool. I want to do the windows as, let's go back to that brown. I want to have this part kind of fade back a little more. This will kind of match a little more with the sky. So we're getting a little bit of that kind of vibe. Oh. And Frank, what are you working on, by the way? I'm kind of curious how everything's going for you, buddy. All right, so we have all of this starting to happen. kind of want to have this as frames here. This is frames here. This could be like that's more just like a different thing. Yep, that's working. Nice. Frank said he finished a commission painting and got paid for it. Congrats, man. I think there is nothing better than getting paid to do something you're good at. And I don't know. I think tying back into what I was saying at the top of this thing, there's something very fun about like being able to make money doing art. It's pretty fun. It's really cool. A privilege that I think is easy to kind of forget, that it is a privilege. And for me, again, like today was one of those days where I realized like I'm really enjoying this process a lot. I'm enjoying this book a lot. I can't wait to. I'm at the point where I can't wait to like kind of rough out the next pages because I kind of I'm remembering the stuff that I fell in love with the script. It's early on, but that's always a good sign if you're still kind of in it, where are we at? Okay, we have about 7 minutes till the next. Oh, nice. The empty tomb for Easter. That's awesome. I'm excited about Easter, man. We're probably that might be one small exception I allow myself kind of to hang out with the kid on Easter. We're doing a little get together and definitely reading some passages and celebrating. Let's see here. What do we got? Yep. I think I want this to be and I want this to be whew. So now we're getting into that territory that's so small, but I think I need to see it through. I have to see it through and add all the detail. It's so tempting to just be like, that's it, right? But I have to see it through. All right, we're gonna finish this panel come hell or high water, guys. At least a panel. I gotta at least get that done. Okay. Let's go through and deselect. Okay, wait a minute. Start with creams because I feel like there's a lot of creams that are going to be in here. There's 1, there's 2, there's 3. Done. There's 4. There we go. I kind of like the idea of maybe that. So could you imagine if someone were to witness someone live streaming but not realize they were live streaming, what they would think? I was just thinking that. Like if you were to just walk into a room and see me working on art and just talking out loud like this, but like there's no stream on, that would be one of the creepiest things in the world. Just saying. That just dawned on me. Okay. So now we have our windows going. Got a little bit more going on here. I kind of like it. Okay. I feel like we're making progress here, guys. I'm gonna finish this panel at least. I felt like at the beginning of the night, I felt like I'm gonna flat this entire page, and I forgot how complex a cityscape is, which makes me realize those 2 other mid panels are going to take a long time. This page is just a beast of a page because of the city scenes. So it took a while to draw. It's going to take an even equal amount of time to flat. And that is okay. It's a little more time. Not a problem. All right. We're going to do this sequence. Actually see if... That's good. Okay. So here, that's going to be... I'm missing some colors that I had before. Do you want to bring some of that brown back in? Just kind of tie it all together. Ooh, you know what? Let's make this green just to get a little more green in there. Be a green overhang up here. Da, 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 da. And here I think I have a little bit more of this going on. And we are getting closer to the Jacob's apartment trailer, which I will be showing a second time. Once my hope here is actually, let's see if we can I kind of want to finish the page. The problem is I do have work tomorrow, so that's why I do a hard out at 2, but honestly, I think if I take a brief break once I finish this panel, eh, we're not gonna finish the page, but we're gonna get as close as we can. Oh my gosh. I think it's the, I've talked about this before, but it's like I think I have deja vu when it comes to comics. I love making comics, and I just will kind of almost like allow myself to forget how time consuming and hard they are. um, and then I'll get into it and be like, oh yeah, this is like a lot of work. This is kind of time consuming and difficult, but it's like fun, it's very engaging. But I'll like kind of forget like how complicated. That has to be a pretty common trait with cartoonists, I guess. There's something in it that keeps us going. I think it's the fulfillment of, like, seeing it come to fruition. Because I have to say, it's gonna look cool when it's done. This page is gonna look pretty rad once it's done there. Alright, so I've got that. See this. Let's do this. Let's do this. Let's do another color. Let's try. We're getting there, guys. It's a slow process, but it's steady and it's going to happen. Comics and childbirth. Yeah, exactly. I feel like maybe it's just a creative process thing. Because I think animation's got to be similar. Animation's an insane pursuit. And if you think about it on its face, it's just sort of a completely insane idea. Like, I'm going to make drawings like move. But like the second you see them move, it's kind of addictive and strangely alluring. There's definitely got to be something in us that like allows us to forget. Oh my goodness, you guys, we're getting close. Here's the thing, I'm trying not to cop out at the last second and just make quick like blah selections where I'm not differentiating the areas, even though they're tiny little details, because I feel like I already went this far, and I want it to be seen seen all the way to its fullest. So there we go. Check that. Check yourself before you wreck yourself, you guys. We have finished one panel. And I like it with the white. Although I'm kind of curious. Let's see if the rain looks better with some color to it. Oh, did I? Oh. I didn't do some color. So I could go with that, but I think white is just way better. White says all it needs to say. Do I want to, on this section, Do I want to allow a little bit of play in the sense of, let's see here. Maybe even a little more extreme. Is that too much? I think it might be getting overcomplicated here. Maybe it needs to go the different direction, like deeper. Either that or that. I kind of like it lighter because that gives more of the atmosphere with the rain. Because if I went darker and then we're adding rain, let's see, without the darkness. Yeah, that looks way more foggy. Okay, so I was overdoing it. Okay, guys, we now have, I can get rid of that reference. We now have one thing going. And now it's going to be about the other thing and getting that going. I also think, in retrospect, I think I need to get this and I need to lighten it significantly. I'm doing that like the screen darkness thing. Good rule of thumb with digital art is if you're finding that, ooh, that might be a little too. There we go. Is that pink? Oh man, I might again be. Okay. Well, okay. Let me step away for a second. I'm gonna play the Jacob's Apartment trailer again. So this is a trailer for a book that is coming out on June 7th of this year that I'd like you guys to pre-order, and I will be back shortly after this. So enjoy. Clearly it seems that only in dreams can we be these things we've seen and walk around breathing I don't know the part to play in this heart of mine. There's dissonant things, they split at the seams. All right, we're back. That was cool. I like those as a break because I do think that kind of keeps the tempo. It kind of keeps you guys hopefully entertained. And now I'm going to get into the fun part where I have all my selections made. I know what I'm going to do, and now it's just a matter of selecting and doing it. I'd made the one mistake of deselecting something prior and not doing that accurately. So right now we're going to get into this cabbie, which again, I want to kind of pull some colors that I'm using already. So I'm thinking if that's my black on the cab, that would be a good color to have the cab, but maybe I want it to be the black of the hat and the shoes. Much better. Pops a little better there. So we're going to get into some of this cab, and then again, like a lot of this might have to continue on to the next stream. I was really hoping that we'd be at a point tonight where we could move forward to like the next thumbnail, which I already have kind of plotted out, and it would be fun to kind of start thumbing the next pages. But I am guessing that finalizing these pages might be what I do this week. And then the weekend will be kind of composed of hauling ass on the next thumbnails. That's okay. That is how these things are done. I do kind of like the idea of leaving a little ambiguity when it comes to the interior here. I might even do like the blue shadow thing. We'll see. I might even overlay a tone over all of this color when I'm done to kind of give it a little mood and maybe brighten it up a little bit. Let's see here. Might also go in with some white and give it some highlights, depending if that's overkill or not, time allowing. The nice thing about this cab is I feel like a lot of this is going to be one tone. Even here, I kind of feel like this front area is going to be about the same metal as the back area. And we're going to do a little bit of this area too and see it through to 2 o'clock. So at about 1:55, we'll say like 1:56, I'll probably start doing some drops for things you can purchase. I also will say I happily accept super chats, but I don't want to shake down people I know for super chats. So again, that's more like if you guys catch the streams during the day or something like that. But super chats are a nice way to show your support. The channel, another good way to show your support this channel is make sure you're subscribed and you've hit that bell. That way you get notifications when this is about to go live. It's a lot of fun to kind of interact with everybody on the stream. And I've been really enjoying that process of the sort of back and forth. I really want the cab to be composed of almost like, I almost want it to be like a slightly like very simple thing where we're almost going to even have a lot of flats that are like, varying from like these two different tones. So I think that reads pretty well. I'm going to have my lights. I like the idea of this kind of moon colored light. On the light bulbs. And that might be the one rare case where on these lamps, I might end up color holding, kind of like I do with the moon. We're gonna kind of have to see how that pans out. But I do think that might be kind of a cool effect to eventually bring to this. Okay. So I hope you guys are seeing how this works. Maybe you guys are way quicker at flatting than I am. I would be curious to kind of hear from people who might have like a quicker route of doing what I'm doing here. I like the idea of the hub here. That's going to be equally kind of the same tone. Some really interesting mechanics that seem to be going on here. But I like the idea of the inside of those lamps kind of having the same color hold effect. I really do like that. So I think that might be something we do. Polygonal lasso. It's gonna lasso. Polly is gonna lasso. That's right. Do not mess with Polly. All right. We're getting closer, guys. Let's save and I drop. There we go. I needed a third tone of black. It's gonna be like a gray to kind of get in there with. I also want this to have potentially that same carriage stuff going on here. Got some carriage details. Want the deets to be all worked out here. And then we're going to do a brown. Do I have a nice brown already? Or do I need to kind of invent that again? This could be the brown of his hair or the brown of the building. I think I like the idea of it being kind of the brown of the building. Or this could be a totally new brown because it's going to be a foreground element. So I like the idea of kind of bringing forward a little more going on. There we go. So just a little bit brighter, and there we go. Oh. Don't want those little... All right, we have Ronnie Gunter joining us, and he said, loving the colors. Thanks, man. I'm just doing my flatten, and holy moly, I'm reminded why colorists need to get more love out there. Because holy moly, coloring comics is a whole different beast of work to do. Do I want my horse? I think I want my horse to be like a reddish brown, but we're going to kind of get into that in a second. We're just kind of ruling out other colors. How are you doing, Ronnie? How's the comic coming along? Ronnie Gunter of Crimson Owl Comics has a good show on YouTube called Comics de la Muerte. Jason Alexander is really good. It's a fun show, especially if you're into horror comics, and such things. Ooh, you think that's okay? We're gonna play with the horse though, because I feel like that could be a thing. Definitely feel like I want these eyeball blocker things to be black in this kind of bluish territory. I also think just to keep things simplified, it might be good to have this section. No, that should be the brown. Always trying to draw panel shots to help me grow as an artist. Yeah, that's something I'm trying to do too. Like this horse was kind of a growing experience. I feel like anytime you have to draw something like a horse, it's like a learning curve that's pretty insane. But you grow every time, you know. Growing and improving is like half the fun of these things. I want to have this also equally there. And we're just going to kind of try to do a limited palette and introduce, since this is like a foreground element, I don't mind introducing another color into the palette, but if we can pull from the colors we've already established, the less the better. Dave Stewart style, right? One of the things I really admire about Dave Stewart's colors, like the colors for Hellboy, is he does these like muted colors, but they're very, very minimal. Let's see if we can find. I want the stirrup things to be that brown? I think I do. Back into it. Maybe I want a little more separation here. Maybe we're going to introduce some of this, since we're a little more separated, up here. Maybe that's part of it. Maybe we go back to, oh man. All right, it's getting there, guys. It's just taking forever, but we are going to get there. Okay. Can't allow myself to get discouraged from the amount of time on this. Okay. We all take time to do art. That is what art is. Oh, that was the wrong direction there. I want to do this and this. There we go. Probably I'm going to want to do that. And then we're probably going to want to do that. With a little bit of this taken out of it. Is that the cheek? Oh my goodness. My brain, you guys, my brain is not. It's getting close to that clock out time of the day where I gotta kind of turn in pretty soon. So I have a good 5 minutes left to get a little further on this horse. And then we're probably going to have to call the stream. I can definitely feel my body and mind starting to wane a little bit. Okay. By the way, when you're doing these flats and you're using the selection tools, just make sure that you have anti-aliasing off. If you have anti-aliasing on, it'll kind of blur your edges, and that just makes for a beast of a time when you have to later select and use these things you're building as a mask. So that's a nice little pro tip, I guess, that hopefully will help those of you out who might be delving into the territory of digital coloring a little earlier on. Okay, let's get the horse colored. At least we can get the carriage done. That's cool. Excited about that. Okay, I want this horse to be different brown, more of like a reddish. Maybe he's like a deeper brown. Let's see if there's a brown that exists already. Ah, but see, if I use the brown that's up there, that's not going to stand out against. Got it. Okay. See it without. Do we want to do black? No, I want it to be a brown horse. I think a deeper brown, but one that's going to stand out against that brown up there. Like a reddish. And I don't want it to be equal in value to the red it's standing on. So maybe it goes darker. Ah, there we go. And then we're going to see how that, yes, that's the brown. All right, you guys, we might actually finish this horse. Wait. I think we can finish the horse before the cutoff time for the stream. I will say it's really good when you're doing art to like set barriers for your own mental health and also for your own personal health. Like me, I've had to do a lot of thinking about what is the maximum I can push my body and my brain after, you know, a full day of working at as an art director, to where tomorrow I can like go in and do a full day and be like 100% present, do my job as an art director and function, you know, and still do book time with my kid. And that, to me, that magic cutoff is 2:00. Anytime I've forgotten, I'm quickly reminded of that. Because I've definitely had streams where I pushed it a little bit, and then like the next day was just like, yep, can't do that again. All right, let's see here. But it's interesting, and I will say it's a good thing to think about, right? Because you don't want to push yourself to where you're not being healthy, but you also don't want to take it too easy on yourself, you know? It's like really just a personal call for each person to kind of figure out what their limits are. And each person's going to have their own kind of thing when it comes to that. Okay. I want this to almost be like a yes. Yes. Look at that lovely thing. Guys, we're doing grays here. A lot of gray tones. A lot of iterations to kind of figure out what way we're doing things here. A lot of, let me see. Oh, that's going to be more of this. And then there was a spot here where I missed a section. And then a spot here where it gets a little sloppy. I don't like those little straggler areas. And here it's getting a little bit sloppy. So I'm going to try to get rid of those little spotty areas. Let's do this again. And look at that horse. That is an amazing, wonderful horse. There we go. This one. And let me see. Yep. You know what? That's it. Okay, so for now, that's going to be it for today. That's as far as it's got. Oh, I almost forgot the butt. The butt of that horse. All right. So that's as far as we're going to get today. So for now, I'm going to do that good old trick of like magenta-ing everything I have left to go. That's a heck of a lot further than we were yesterday. So again, we're gonna get there, guys. We're gonna get there, but it's just a long, crazy process. A long, long process, but it's well worth it. Let's also just real quick do a image mode grayscale. And let's make sure it's reading. Oh yeah. Yep. That's reading very, very nicely. And Wimple is standing out a little bit. Okay. So we're gonna save. Oh, Ronnie, I think on the kind of finding your own limits, said learn that the hard way, I think years ago. Yeah, I think that's a good lesson. All right. So we're gonna save. Oh, I want to try one thing. I don't want to push past my limit, but I do want to try and see if we can bring a little bit of moonlight into these lights. Because that should be a real easy, fairly quick experience. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay. Let's see if this works. Hey, look at that. Yes. Okay. I'm going to save. And now we're going to save that on the next stream. I will be continuing and finishing the flats for this. There's no question that tomorrow I need to be 100% done with the flats on this page, come hell or high water. All right. Thanks to everybody who's joined and cruised in and said hi. If you want to support this channel, you saw trailers of this early on in the stream, but Jacob's Apartment is my graphic novel that, let's go to full cam. This is my graphic novel coming out from Graphic Mundi in June 7th. It's a comic that's a doomed romance story, slice of life that's in the vein of like Ghost World and the Royal Tenenbaums or like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You guys might like it and should definitely pre-order that if you haven't yet. And definitely go to your local bookstore and make sure that they are carrying this in their store. It's available through Diamond Distribution, so you should be able to go to your local comic shop, your local bookstore, wherever books are sold, and request that they carry this. And then also 2 stories, my graphic novel that talks about my journey dealing with depression, as well as caregiving for somebody with panic disorder, as well as stories of growing up as a comic book geek and the weirdness of going to a Christian school at a young age and some of the hypocrisy there, and my journey finding faith. That's all in this action-packed slice of life autobiographical comic, 2 stories, which you can order on Amazon today. So that being said, thanks to everybody who's been coming to these. Thanks, Ronnie, too. Have a good night. And everybody else who showed up in the chats. And make sure you check out the chats, too, if you're watching it afterwards. And check out what everyone who's appeared in the chats is doing. Just a lot of really fun other artists and cartoonists kind of doing their thing. That is going to do it for me. Have a good night, you guys, and I will see you on the next live stream. Goodbye.